Waiting on Lisa, is she available too?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and start.
Is Coketia there?
Yeah, she's coming right out. So imagine after introduction, she'll be sitting here.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Yep. Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May 2nd, 2023 City Planning Commission meeting. I tell you what, Kansas City really represented us well with the NFL draft this past weekend. It was a lot of fun. Commissioners, look forward to hearing your case today as we understand every project is important and unique. In addition, we want to make sure that we address all of the docketed items individually with the attention that they need to build consensus between the applicant, public, and city staff. We also believe we can reach consensus by being brief yet heard. Because our meeting is still hybrid, I imagine it's going to be that way as long as I will probably be alive. We have time limits for the cases that we hear, which is 5 minutes for staff presentations, 20 minutes for the applicant, plus any questions by the commissioners. When we move to public comment, I will call on those who are in the council chambers first, followed by those who are joining us virtually. We do have a timer to keep our meeting on track and expect public comments to be no longer than 2 minutes for individuals or up to 5 minutes when speaking or representing a community organization or association or larger group. In all instances, please limit repetitive comments. As everybody knows, the comprehensive plan, Casey Spirit Playbook, has been officially adopted. We'll see more as they implement the plan in the upcoming months. So pretty excited about that, I believe. So as we get started with our meeting, I asked staff to provide some ground rules and instructions to ensure that we have minimal disruption and maximum clarity. So Joe, can you remind us of those ground rules, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, if you're participating virtually on Zoom today, just note that there are 2 categories of participants there, which are attendees and panelists. And right now, the only panelists are commissioners and some staff. If you are an applicant for a case, when it is called, please go ahead and raise your hand, and we will ask you to accept a promotion to a panelist position. You do have to accept that promotion. The same is true for any citizen who wishes to speak during public testimony. As the case is being presented by the planner, go ahead and raise your hand and we will promote you over during the public testimony portion of the hearing. Once you're promoted over, please make sure you stay muted and until your name is called, and then unmute yourself to speak. We will call, in terms of public testimony, anyone who's in attendance in the chamber first, followed by those using Zoom. The last thing, Mr. Chair, is that the chat feature in Zoom is intended to be used only for questions about where we're at on the agenda or technology related issues. It is not to be used to provide any testimony on the merits of a case. And that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and begin with our consent agenda items. Since we only have one, I need to recuse myself from this one. So Commissioner Hill, can you take that over, please?
Absolutely. All right, Joe, you want to read the case?
Docket item C1, case number CPC 2023-00043. Request to approve a final plan and district MPD for Redwood on North Brighton, which is located at the corner of Northeast 76th Street, North Brighton Avenue. Staff is recommending approval with conditions.
All right, are there any questions from commissioners on this case? Right, is there anyone, Joe, we can take public testimony? Is there anyone that wants to speak on this docket item?
Yes, there's one person on Zoom named Polina Timoshenko, whom I've promoted.
Paulina, welcome to CPC. Please state your full name and address for the record. I don't see them.
Yeah, he or she did not accept the promotion. And they lowered their hand, so maybe they had it raised accidentally.
Okay. Is there anyone in the chamber that would like to speak on consent docket item 1? All right,
C1.
yes. Please come to the podium and state your full name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good morning, Commission. John Chamberlain with Kimley Horn and Associates, here representing the project. Also with me today, I have Michael Campbell, one of our design partners with Burns and McDonald. And then also Corey Kingsland, who is joining us remote with Burns and McDonald. We have reviewed the staff conditions to the plan. There are 3 items that we had, pardon.
This is just, since it's on consent, we don't really need a walkthrough of it. This is just if anyone has testimony either against or for the case.
I think he's here for the wrong, he's
Okay.
he's
You're
here
for
for
one.
docket item
Oh,
number
you're
1.
docket item 1. We're on the consent agenda, consent 1. So you're next.
C1.
Pardon?
If they're handling docket item number C1.
Okay.
Yeah, you're docket item probably 1.
Yeah, it's docket item number 1.
Yeah.
Dr. Wong.
Okay, you're 1. We're on C1, consent agenda 1.
Okay.
Thank you. No worries. Hey, you got good practice, right? Good strong voice. You know how to get to the mic. It's awesome. Is there anyone who wants to speak on consent docket item 1 in the chamber? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public testimony. If there's no other comments from commissioners, we can entertain a motion.
Chair Hill, I move to approve docket item C1 with conditions.
Second. The move in second. Lisa, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye. All right, that's been unanimously approved. All right, Kobe, welcome back.
All right, thank you. Let's go move on to our regular agenda items. Joe, starting with those that are looking to be continued to a future date, please.
Yeah, those start with docket item 10 and it's 10 through 13. First one, docket item 10 is case number SUP 2022-00045. Request to approve a special use permit to allow for gasoline and fuel sales at 8025 Hickman Mills Drive. The agenda says continuance without fee to May 16th. However, staff is now recommending continuance without fee to June 6th. Docket item 11, case number CPC 2023-00002. Request to approve a rezoning from District B4-2 to District UR at 6500 Troost. The applicant is requesting continuance and staff recommends without fee to May 16th. Docket item 12, case number SUP 2023-00014. Request to approve a special use permit in District M1-5 for a warehouse and accessory structures at 123 Belmont Boulevard. The agenda says continuance without fee to May 16th. However, staff is now recommending June 6th. And finally, docket item 13, case number CPC 2023-00042. A request to approve a rezoning from District R 7.5 to District O for the Santa Fe Elementary School located at Eastern Avenue and Old Santa Fe Road. In this one, the applicant is requesting continuance. Staff recommends without fee to May 16th.
Okay, any questions by the commissioners for continuances of docket items 10, 11, 12, or 13? Okay, seeing none, let's open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding the continuance of those docketed items, please raise your hand or come forward and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, it appears there's no one in the chamber and no one on Zoom has raised their hand.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony on that then, and I'll take a motion, please.
Chair Crow, I move for docket item 11 and 13 to be continued without fee to May 16th. Docket item 10 and 12 to be continued without fee to June 6th.
So I've got a motion and a second for continuance of docket items 10 through 13 as stated. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowe,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes 8-0. So with that, let's go ahead and start with docket item number 1, please.
All right, docket item 1 is case number CPC 2023-00016. Request to approve a development plan, which also serves as a preliminary plat in District M3-5 to allow for the construction of a 135,000 square foot data center on 38 acres located at the northwest corner of Missouri Highway 210 and North Arlington Avenue. Olufu Agbaji is the staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Plan Commission. Olufu Agbaji, City Planning and Development. This next item, as Joe stated, is a request for approval of a development plan for data center. Joe, can you please promote Luke Long? And I don't know if Chad Sanderson is on the line, but John, you're welcome to. John Chamberlain is in the chambers, but there should be 2 other team members online.
Good morning, Commission. Sorry for the quick start here this morning.
That's all right. So let us go through a staff report first and then we'll open it up for the applicant. Thank you.
So the site, as you can see, my arrow pointing is just on 210 highway, specifically at the northeast corner of 210 and North Arlington. As you can see, the village of Birmingham is within that area. 210 goes all the way to 291 on the east and 435 on the west. And closer look shows Hunt Midwest Industrial Business Park within this area. Walls of Fun just to the north of that. And if you recall, North Arlington, through the existing plans and approval over the years, is being approved to continue and connect to Northeast 48th Street to then go to 435. So eventually this will then create the second access that's needed within the industrial park to get you to 210 highway and out. This area is within the Birmingham Levy District, but it's also within the Riverfront Industrial Park and future use. And I'll go through the data. The site itself is 38 acres in size, zone M3-5. And this development plan, since the original request went out, the applicant has revised the plan to make it into a 2-phase project. So eventually it will be 192,000 square foot, with the first phase being 125,000 square foot and a future phase of 75,000 square foot to come through. Again, I said it's within the Birmingham levee district, which means it's technically a wetland that's been developed through that. So one of the conditions is that they do have to receive approval from the Birmingham levee district, and they are currently working on a plan to mitigate the wetlands as part of their proposed development plan. And one of the two concerns the staff have is with the amendment to the plan to get 2 phases, they are putting in a second driveway, and staff wants that driveway relocated to 36th Street. And then the other concern, which I've been working with the applicant all through the process, is how you're going to screen this proposed development from the existing residences on the east side of North Arlington. And as I go through, those are the things I'll try to show you. So again, this is the site, 38 acres. The developer or the applicant also owns the site to the north. So 210 highway is on the south. North Arlington is currently just a 2-lane unimproved road section. No curbs, no gutter, no sidewalks. So 35th Street comes at the middle of the site, 34th Street is down on the bottom, and 36th Street is at the top. Since they applied, we've been working with Miss Haley, Sonia Haley, who lives at this location at the lowest point, and the other ones that are impacted are on the north side. So over time, we've had various discussions. I think they've had multiple public engagement meetings too, and they've met with her separately. She could not be here, but she did express her concerns. And I think we are getting towards taking care of what her concerns are. This is a picture of the site. So you can see the site, the north picture, excuse me, shows 210 going westward, and North Arlington comes in and goes north at the site. So Miss Haley lives at this location, and then the site is currently in agricultural farmland. You can see how flat it is. It is very, very flat. There's nothing, and it is currently being farmed. So there's no trees, there's nothing on the land, and this is Miss Haley's residence. This is the proposed plan. So the original plan was for just 1 phase with access of what is Northeast 35th Street. And with the proposed future addition, they are proposing a second driveway, and it's proposed to come in at this location. What it does not show is that there is a house at this specific location where this is coming. So the main issue staff has is that we want this driveway to be connected where it comes out and aligns with Northeast 36th Street. And I do have options because I've worked with the applicant to see what that would look like. Again, there are wetlands. As you can see, these are the wetlands that are being mitigated, and I will show you more of the options. Again, this is a closer look with landscaping as proposed by the applicant. So this is the original application that was filed prior to the amendment. So when you see this, this aligns with Again, north is to your left. So I wanted to lay this out so we have a better view. North is to your left, Arlington is on top, and 210 highway is on the right. So this aligns with Northeast 35th Street, and this was what the original application was. So with the amendment, they added phase 2, which required a second access with an access gate. And this is what staff had asked to see if we could get this to align to that position. So this is my request to have this aligned to Northeast 36th Street. So you have one access aligning to 35th and the second one aligning to 34th Street. So this is what they have proposed and what is before you. So I have condition number 1 with a myriad of corrections before it goes to City Council. And this is the main point. So I do not want this connection to occur at this point. Staff recommends that this connection occurs at this point. And again, this is where we are. So they currently propose the second drive at this location. Staff wants it to be align with this location. They own the other property. All they need is a reciprocal cross-access easement, which also grants a driveway for the property to the north. It's one owner, so I want this to be removed and moved to this location. So again, this is where it will come out, and these are the existing homes that are there. So rather than come out further south, align to the third building, staff recommends that goes there. This is a proposed working map of how they intend to create berms and landscaping that will go with the landscaping, including the realignment of the second drive. So these berms will be put on around this area to further screen the existing homes from this proposed development. And that's one of the corrections that's part of the plan. Again, with that, staff's recommendation and DRC's recommendation is for approval subject to the conditions. And like I said, I've had conversation with Miss Haley, who lives at the lower on 34th Street, and other neighbors, and they did have a public engagement meeting on April 23rd. That ends my presentation, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. So that north access, that'll be done as part of phase 2, correct? Or
Yes,
that's phase 1.
That'll
Okay.
be done as part of phase 2.
And then it would actually be centered on the property line? Is that how that would tie into Northeast 36th Street?
Yes,
Okay, and they own the property to the north?
Yeah.
Same owner? Okay. Any questions from the commissioners to city staff?
My only question to orient myself, are you talking about the connection to 435 that we talked about with, not about the actual site, but you said that there's where the location of the site is in the Birmingham area.
I can go back and
You said that there was going to be a connection to 435
So
through North Arlington, right?
we have approved, I think, the Arlington TIF, which takes from Parvin Road. This is Parvin Road, and it extends Arlington that turns to Northeast 48th Street, and then that connects by Gracemore neighborhood, and then
Okay.
takes you all the way to 45. So that is going to be open. Mr. Bell is here. You probably know when that will open, but that's under construction and should be open soon.
And is that connected to the caves south of there? We talked about.
The caves does have access off Parvin Road, and you can go down, actually off Arlington also. So the cave access, second access is off Arlington.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where we're at.
So Arlington will then provide that second access from 435 to 210.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Hi there.
Morning, John Chamberlain with Kimley Horn and Associates, 805 Pennsylvania Avenue, Suite 150, KCMO. With here today is Michael Bell with Burns and McDonald. We also have Corey Kingsland from Burns and McDonald. We have reviewed the comments that we received from staff. We have 3 items that we would like to discuss that we like to see if we could get some relief on. First would be berms along
Go ahead and
North.
speak a little bit more into your microphone so we can
Pull
hear
it-
you.
Just pull it closer to you.
Yeah, just pull it to you if you don't mind. It'd be perfect. There we go. Thank you.
The first item would be the berming along North Arlington. We understand the desire for screening to the residential to the east of the site. However, there are, as was pointed out in Olafu's presentation, there are 2 existing jurisdictional wetlands that are on the property. Both of those wetlands are fed from drainage that basically moves from the northeast of the site to the southwest through our site. Berming along North Arlington blocks off some of that flow that is getting there. And so we're totally in favor of providing the screening with trees, evergreens as requested by staff. But our preference would be not to provide the berming for the reason that we don't want to change the existing drainage patterns that are out there on site. And, basically what charges those wetland areas that have been determined to be jurisdictional by the Corps of Engineers. So that's one item. The second item, which kind of correlates with that, is the driveway location to the north. And our issue with moving that driveway up and connecting at 36th Street is now it requires us to cross over the northern wetland. And that was the driving factor on that driveway location, was to stay out of that northern jurisdictional wetland that the court have basically defined. So we're trying to minimize any impacts that we would have to that wetland area. So that's what was the driving factor on locating that. Then we have a third item, which is related to, I think it was item 26 in the staff report. And it was a request that we received from KC Water to add additional fire hydrants along North Arlington. And we would request that would be deferred to the second phase. And the reason that we're asking for that deferment is if the fire hydrants are installed in the first phase of development, none of those hydrants will be within the 300-foot hose length of the building within phase one. So they really don't provide any benefit to the development. The development will have its own internal fire line and fire hydrants. Now, as the building is extended in phase two, we would be in favor of installing the fire hydrants along North Arlington, but we would ask that be deferred until phase two development. And I'll have Michael, one of our design partners, add any of his comments.
All right. Yeah, and to further reiterate the point of avoiding the wetlands, I think our key on that is any impedance of those would require mitigation through the Army Corps of Engineers. That process would require an alternative analysis, which would require us to provide different plans and options, of which we've already shown one where we avoid the wetlands with the road. The option going through the wetlands would have to be explained to the extent to where we would require the city to also provide their justification of why we have to go through the wetlands. So that would be documentation from the city that we would provide to the U.S. Corps of Engineers, explain why that road is required, even though it does meet the city's transportation requirements as shown, not impeding into the wetlands. So just to further reiterate that point. Additionally, on the berms, we did a lot of analysis on line of sights. The current vegetation on the east side of Arlington, as well as the vegetation we plan to add on our side of Arlington, would effectively shield and improve greater than the berming would. The building, based on the orientation of it, we've already located such to show the frontage side of the building, so blocking any of the equipment in the rear. So we've already made efforts to orientate the building and arrange it as well as landscape to screen it best as we can in best efforts for a relationship with the neighbors for the foreseeable future of the project.
Okay. You mind stating your name and address for the record, please?
Michael Bell, 3184 West 132nd Place in Leawood, Kansas.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Any questions from the commission to the applicant? Go ahead.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the sustainability of the development with regards to there's been a number of data centers going up? I want to understand how that is going to affect the grid on the floor. Are you doing offsets? Are you doing renewable part of the development? How is that going to work?
Yep, happy to shed light on that. So first and foremost, the facility is going to be utilizing waterless cooling. So we will not be pulling any additional water. So we will be using a mix of water and also another refrigerant in order to cool the facility. So we will not be pulling any additional water. Also, we will be utilizing green energy on behalf of Evergy's renewable process. So we will be looking at 100% renewables as far as offset for the usage at the data center. Our tenants are those that have green initiatives worldwide, and therefore we will also be making those same efforts as part of attracting them to the location.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up on that, have you looked at on-site, any solar for either the site that you're working on or the north site that you own?
Yes, unfortunately, the manner of site that we have wouldn't allow us enough renewables on site to really make much of a difference locally. That's why we're purchasing those in other locations. So wind, solar, and in places where there's a lot more space to have that of a significant value to offset.
And I assume rooftop solar was something you explored as well in terms of.
We have not, no. And once again, it just goes to the amount of rooftop required to actually make a difference in solar from both a useful case as well as economic case.
I do have another question. And really, I suppose it's more back with staff on the wetland mitigation and so forth. Where are we with regards to getting resolution? Because it looks like if we put the driveway in or the berms in, it's going to affect the wetland function.
I have some response to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have some response to their 3 concerns, and I will address it after.
Right. Thank you.
Wondered if we could talk a little bit more about I know with the conditions, we talked about wetlands, but could we talk a little more broader about what the mitigation strategies are that you're using on site for the wetlands?
So presently, we have no plans to mitigate those wetlands. We would like to avoid them as a first exercise.
Okay.
The alternative analysis would be required in submitting for that nationwide permit with the Corps, which we have not submitted yet because once again, our effort is to avoid them in the first place.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions from the commission to the applicant? Okay. Real quick, Mr. Kiefer, are you available?
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts on the deferring the fire hydrants to phase 2?
Well, typically, if you're going to do a deferral like that, it would be a secured deferral anyway, because you have no way of knowing if phase 2 will ever be developed. So my recommendation would be that we leave, they are shown on the proposed development plan, and I would recommend we leave them on the development plan.
Okay. Kind of noisy here because of some drilling or something like that. So just asking the applicant, it looks like there's 3 fire hydrants that are to be added.
That is correct.
If it's
What's that? I think Mr. Kiefer's saying because there's 2 phases on this project and they want to defer to phase 2. We don't know the timing of when phase 2 could actually happen or if it even does.
Okay.
And so his recommendation would be to leave it in as part of phase 1, just so they have them in. Yeah, it looks like there's 3 hydrants. One of them is south of the south access road, and then the other 2 are between the 2 access roads.
On the property or?
The applicant is asking to defer all of them. And so
All of them are just one.
they would put them in as part of phase 2, but yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, you still have.
Is not looking closely at it, is the distinction that we could just identify those as part of phase
That's
2,
fine.
so that they know that it's not required?
Well, there's 3 of them to be installed as part of the project. That's a matter of timing as to when. And staff is asking that they be installed as part of phase 1. just because of timing of phase two. They're not sure when that would be.
Okay.
So that's something we can hold for discussion.
Could I ask the question, is the intent of those fire hydrants for our phase two building or for other purposes?
Mr. Chairman, this condition is by fire department, so
I'm sorry.
this condition is by the fire department, so we can,
Actually, it's part of, it's the fire requirement, but it's actually required by Casey Water.
it's both. Yeah.
And Travis, just to clarify, you're saying you would like to see all three of those installed as part of phase one?
Right, the only way to do that as far as a deferral would be a secured deferral agreement. And then that means, posting the funds to build those at some point in the future. The problem is you don't know what that point in the future is going to be.
Sure.
Would those fire hydrants have to be relocated when that portion of Arlington Road is expanded?
Is there a question for Travis? or-
That is a question for Travis or
Not me.
Yeah,
Or you.
actually, Public Works, yeah, that main, yeah, it's a fairly new main in that area. And I know the expansion has been up on the north end of Arlington as they connect to 48th Street. So I don't know as far as any future expansions that are currently planned for that portion.
Travis, can I ask you one question? If there was no phase two, what would be the requirements for the hydrants?
That would have to be spelled out in the deferral agreement. Then you would put in basically, upon phase two or within a certain period of time.
I'm just wondering if the phase two is what is like, tripping the requirement for those additional ones.
Well,
Right.
actually, it's to have, the fire coverage along Arlington out there.
But as I understand, we're not aware of the expansion plans of Arlington and how that might conflict with the lines. Okay.
Oh, and in the public testimony, their meeting, there was some discussion about they've already received, I guess,
Has the applicant got a idea of the timeline for phase two?
I would defer to Evergy to give us power. Now, right now, we're looking at phase two being enacted by a few things. One of them is power to the site from Evergy. They're still working on their timeline for that. The other is triggers as far as being able to sell that portion and expand. So it could be a 2 to 3 year timeline on that.
One more question on the wetlands, just because my only sense of the topography of the site was the street view that Olafu had shared. Are the wetlands more defined by the grade coming into that area in question, or is it by the actual elevation of that area?
It's actually by both.
Okay, and so
Because
then,
the grades coming into it is what feeds those areas.
So in
And then there's
terms of-
also, you can kind of see, if you go back that aerial view, Olafu, you can see them fairly distinctly because there are kind of the darker areas on that aerial that you see there. Those were the areas that ended up. And then you can kind of see off to the northeast. You can see how it kind of drains through that neighborhood from the northeast coming in to feed that area. A bit darker on the aerial there.
and then right now, what's there currently, it's being used as agricultural land, correct?
Correct.
I don't know enough about this, but two questions. One, in terms of berms, I would think that in the lower right-hand corner, you could berm part of it and then have a break, and it would be, some sort of added benefit in terms of screening, but then you could still add trees there and it'd be a compromise of sorts. And then on the northern section, is that something that, as you're doing site work, is that because it's not like we're looking at native grasses there, is that something that with some site work you could, trench further to the north and then allow for the mitigation that you all were referring to? Is that what that looks like, or is it different completely?
I'll speak real quick on the berming. So if we choose not to impede on the wetlands and go through mitigation, if you'll notice that dark area on the southeast corner there, that we would not be able to put a berm there. And that is probably where the berm would most likely be wanted based on the corner neighbor as far as their eyesight to the building. So that's why, once again, we view the berming as not really serving the purpose versus the trees will have much more of a significant
Where his
screening.
cursor is, like below in the very, very bottom quadrant, could you berm even,
You could berm that,
Eat it.
but there's nothing that way. There's nothing to the west of that berm.
building, you're saying?
Right, the building would be basically looking northwest from that corner lot of the residence.
And then the way that the site's laid out, you wouldn't want to berm on the other side of that lower part.
Yeah, it still ends up being a 30-foot tall building with a 5-foot berm trying to cover it. So that's why we view trees as more of a way to block that than the berms would.
Got it. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, just to kind of wrap this up, I'm asking for berms and I'm also asking for trees. So it's a combination of both. So if looking at the same picture, if the building is going to be impacting some of the wetlands, so if you look on your staff report, page 4, the review criteria for development plan number 6, that's critical. And the reason why this is before you is that when a development plan is required, we require this development plan for this purpose. So when you are going in, we know you are next to a residential development. We know you zone manufacturing. You're putting in 192,000 square foot of building and parking and all that. So you are going to be impeding on the wetland. So for the sake of the resident that's been here since inception, staff is recommending that that be done. So that additional crossing, which the wetland is still on the other side, you can mitigate and add those wetland for the benefit of the residents that are here. This is outside the wetland, and you can see this is outside the wetland. So, and the criteria that they're looking for is triggered by the review criteria for development plan. And I will send this to them to give to the DNR. So if your total land disturbance area, including this mitigation that will be required, which is required by the code, because you're supposed to kind of buffer, screen, and respect incompatible uses. So that's an additional effort that you have to at least go through to be able to then serve and protect the existing resident. And that's staff's recommendation. So I'll send this to them to be the reason you send that to DNR or to who's the Amico. Yeah, send that to them. It's required. It's a requirement. It's a criteria in the code. Site and development plan that's adjacent to existing single family residences. So the berm is not going to cover everything, but it will just give them a little bit of buffer. And same thing with the ones over here, but at least we are not shining any light or any active egress onto an existing resident. So by putting it here, it also affords the crossing that's going to occur for the property to the north, and they are going to be shared. So there's a benefit for doing that crossing at that location, since there will be only one crossing, this wetland, provide north and south, and you cross this one time and we're able to go. And the berm does not have to be up to 5 feet. They can go anywhere 3 to 4 feet, and then also add evergreen. And it was just a visual buffer that.
The plan that we have in our staff report, which doesn't reflect that change. My understanding correctly that that does not require wetland mitigation because it does not intersect with the wetlands.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so
My correction number 1 requires, I have one, I think it's 1, 2, and 1.
5 maybe.
1, 2, and 1, 5 would then require them to do the options I gave you, because I went through this process with them. I've had this conversation with them, and I have expressed staff's desire to keep that at that location and to provide those berms. They had the same conversation with the neighborhood, and the neighborhood did want those berms, no matter how significant. So I think we can move forward with trying to get those done. and that will be the benefit that's required by the code.
So Oliver, you can't just not build the berm and put the trees for the screening, and then we don't have to worry about disturbing the wetland?
It will be up to them. I will take something, and that's how we arrive at those options you saw. But we need to separate them. First is the second driveway. I do want that at a safe crossing and then doing that. And then the berms, they agree to do something, but now they say they don't want to do it. Staff still wants some form of, and my, let me see what my condition says. Revise the landscape plan to show a berm and continuous row of evergreen shrub along North Arlington Avenue to screen the existing residents on the east of North Arlington Avenue per staff approval prior to ordinance request. So I'm ready to work with them, but for nothing at all, staff does not support that. We need to get a combination of berm or evergreen, probably staggered 30 foot on center, whereby you have it. When they mature, it's completely screened.
So, but there's a playoff. If you build the berm, then you're going to disturb the wetland, right?
That's what they say, but I don't think you will be disturbing as much of the wetland, because if you see the wetland delineated right here, the home that's being screened is right here. This is the first house, and that's outside the wetland. So that will not disturb the wetland. And I should have had, because the backyard and all the plain area for the home is right here. So
But it does disturb the direction of water flow to the wetland. Is that what I'm understanding? From the applicant?
mm,
That was what was said, but I mean, the bottom right, if would indicate that if you put a berm somewhere in there, it's not gonna affect the flow of water, at least my
it
understanding.
can be engineered. I think it can be engineered.
I'm not a drainage expert. Somebody's got to tell me whether
Yeah, right.
that works or not, but I suppose we just put, I mean, I don't understand why we just can't put trees into screen and not have the berm. That's what I'm struggling with.
Also,
I would agree. I think there's a lot of other co-benefits of putting a ton of trees at that location. And I think it also eventually will have more screening than a berm will.
and the landscape architect should make sure that those trees or those evergreen trees are ones that can survive water,
Right.
level of water, and I'm recommending both trees, evergreen, a little berm, and shrubs. I'm recommending all three to be able to capture it. If it minimizes the impact on the wetland also, then we can get a benefit of both. But I'm able to work with them to get the best out of those.
Yeah.
Because not every evergreen trees will survive in that situation. So, and a little bit of shrub and all the requirements.
I suppose what I'm looking to do is protect the wetland as much as possible and have the disturbance. So I don't know what the optimum deal is, but somebody's got to go back and have a. And we do it with that I might probably is a condition that we on development to optimize the mitigation of the disturbance of the wet. Anyway,
What's
we're
the
not doing that.
advantage of barrier? What is the advantage of having the berm?
Berm,
Yes.
it also, as part of that criteria, you protect against light and noise. So it's not just the visual. So it's light, noise, and every activity that's going on that side. The easy part of this is that it's a data center. So there's not that much activity beyond construction, but it's still something that's never been there that's going to be there. And it just also helps out the neighborhood.
I guess to address the noise, we did an acoustical study. We represent less than the average residential home would be at our property. So we will not add additional noise. That study was also done without berm, trees, or anything else. So that was done with just noise travel based on the orientation of our building and everything that makes noise on the backside away from the residents. So we've already done the due diligence to screen noise best as we can without any additional efforts.
What is it around lights when I'm thinking if the houses are facing the building? Cars driving or truck?
So the truck traffic is not significant as you would see from a warehouse or anything like that. The only time we would have deliveries would be normal business hours. And they would only peak at a time where we were loading it up. So at one time, normal operations, it would be no different than any other business in the area.
One last question. General, I'm pro berm, but I want to know, are berms a tool that are, when you look at the code and it's requiring screening, it's saying this is a tool you can use, or are there times where berms are called out as necessary because of the advantages to other forms of screening?
The tool, so it's not
Thanks.
called out specifically. No, it's a tool.
Thanks.
So I feel like for the reasons of low truck traffic and the concerns about the wetland, I feel that we should keep the north road access as it is shown in the staff report. And I also feel that we could put quite a bit more trees on the site to mitigate the views and also just provide some nice aesthetic.
I need a reminder. I thought
Yes.
On the wetland piece, who delineated the wetlands that they're there and said this is the pathway for those?
Actually,
'Cause I'm-
a study that was done to go out and actually map the wetlands. And then that study was submitted to the Corps of Engineers, who then came back and determined that those wetlands were jurisdictional.
Okay, but they allow the local farmer to farm right through everything and do
Those
whatever.
wetland areas have been farmed through continuously year after year for many, many years.
Yeah, so to me, in some ways, they're not really established because they get disturbed every planting season.
It serves a drainage purpose, but it doesn't serve an ecological purpose. I mean, it retains water, but it's not, there aren't turtles and butterflies and other things there that other wetlands that aren't disturbed for,
Yeah.
long periods of time would add in terms of benefit. And that's why I think that mitigation, it'd be terrible to disrupt established wetlands, but to change the path of something that's really just drainage where it's being farmed over every single year right now, it just doesn't seem like there's a huge
Yeah,
downside.
it's you and I thinking that, but obviously somebody else pointed out that is a
So
Jurisdictional.
established wetland
Yeah.
in some
I
way.
would say that, yes, it hasn't been its highest and best use, but I would take this as an opportunity to take that wetland to a better place in terms of becoming a habitat, a watershed. And so maybe you could speak to that. Like, is that a potential opportunity for the site to be more ecologically beneficial to the area than it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point of, yes, they don't look like wetlands now. Unfortunately, the Corps of Engineers views them as butterflies and frogs and everything like that from their perspective. So they've already made that determination. So our goal is to improve those as far as seeding them, actually having it so it's not just a tilled up area. So it will be planted and hopefully restored to more of a wetlands as you would imagine.
At this point, though, if you're establishing it for the first time, moving it, 50 yards north to allow for the streets to align, it's not going to be any difference than putting it where the lower grade is right now, in my very unofficial or uneducated opinion.
But isn't the topography part of it? Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I feel like there's an Army Corps of Engineers study that is sort of beyond all of us, but I sort of want to lean on their expertise to maintain the wetland designation.
That's my, we're not the experts here. It's been designated as a wetland. My view, wetlands is not to disturb them if we can. To just better ways to do it with, if we're just putting a berm up for green, and I don't understand why we can't just put more trees in and screen. My mind.
Again, I don't think that, it's totally different if you place this massive berm across the lowest area where water flows. But if you just don't do that area, you berm on the high ground here and the high ground here, it's better than no berm. and it doesn't disrupt any water flow. So that's why I feel like there's a compromise to be made. And in the photo that was shown, or the plan that was shown, I would disagree with you that the house can see the building pretty easily if they look straight west. I think that is right there. And I mean, in terms of just when you drive around, I think there's a massive difference looking at these huge buildings when there's completely flat land, even if it's full of trees, versus some nice berms. I do think berms add a ton. That's why we ask for them all along our parks or along our boulevards, because it does help a lot.
So thank you, Tyler. That leads right into my question. Remind me, I thought I heard 30 foot was the height of the building. How tall is this building?
35.
I'll double check that.
35, I think.
It's less than 50, yeah. Yeah, and I think that the height of the building is where kind of we go back to the concerns on the berm doesn't. The trees are going to offer more screen than the berm would based on the size of the berm and the size of the building perspective of the residents on the east side. Check. I will confirm that, but we are between 30 and 35 below the 50-foot requirement. The phase 2 building is right now adjusting in height right now. So what you see right now is within the expected size, but we're still working on that design to finalize. It was, as Olafu mentioned, a later add in the project. So we're somewhere between the 30 and 35 feet once we kind of settle on aspects of floor to floor height and screening and such.
Yeah, there's not much on the submittal showing elevation materials or height or anything like that in our staff report.
There should be an elevation.
It's a picture, but there's no
I have a requirement number
height or
4.
any, yeah.
I'd ask for detailed ones, including color and a palette, so.
Well, we can condition for it. One of the things that surprised me a little bit is on page 18, just that area in question that we're talking about is the most important corner for screening. It is light. And again, we can condition it to stagger and have more trees there, but it seems as though there's a misalignment between staff's interest in how screened it should be, because if this had come in with 2 stacks of trees and saying this is how we're trying to screen for it, it would have signaled to me that the intent was understood, whereas this just seems like the minimal amount.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
I just wondered if there was, for the wetland restoration, if there's some standards that either they are held to or that the Corps of Engineers is requiring, just so we can have a little more specificity for what it means to restore the wetland.
I don't know that the Corps has a dedicated information out there for restoration. What's going to occur over time, once those areas are in a state where they're not disturbed, then they're going to start to transform on their own to more of a wetland type usage. And that's kind of what we're anticipating doing. Now we'll go in there and we'll do some appropriate seeding in those areas that would be plantings that would be acceptable for a wetland area as part of the development, but additional measures to try to restore those wetlands, that's currently not in the plan.
That's typically their position, is let nature go back and do what it would have been doing in that case for those wetlands. So we'll do seeding and such to encourage that growth and then let nature take the course from there.
The only caveat to that would be if there's any invasive species that crop up in that space, it could hinder that.
Correct. And that's why we're using all native species to Kent or to Missouri and in the area. So.
Okay.
Has there been an environmental impact study done on the wetlands, on if there is any species there that are endangered or?
Right now, that's all being used as farmland. So I mean, there's no real determination of that area other than it's farmland and it was it is a wetland. And we'll restore to that once we encourage that.
I just know there's been other developments, even though you're running infrastructure through farmlands, that they've actually had to do some sort of environmental act just to make sure there wasn't any species being there. I don't know what bugs and so forth are. I was just wondering whether they've done anything.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, I'd like to open it up for public testimony now. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 1, please come forward or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, I see no one in the chamber. I have promoted Jeanette Betancourt online.
Okay. Hi, good morning, Jeanette. As you take yourself off mute, please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jeanette Betancourt. I'm at 9823 Northeast 36th Street. I also have Madison Noter, which owns the 2 properties directly across off in 53rd.
35th.
Or 35th, 3501 North Arlington Avenue and 3421 North Arlington Avenue.
Good morning.
Good morning. So
Thank you.
I'll address my concern first, if that's okay.
Please do.
So-
Yep.
My concern is that Arlington is such a thin, narrow road as it is. And when you have 2 semis going down the road, it is a problem. So my preferable would be that you take your second entrance to the 36th Street, because I have a feeling it's going to cause too many issues coming out before 36th Street.
Okay. You're saying to line it up to where 36th Street is today on the east side.
Yes, the second proposal, please.
Okay. Anything else?
Madison does have a few issues about the property adjacent.
Hello, my name is Madison Noter, and I have in the last year and a half purchased the 2 fields on the east side of Arlington, and I was wondering how you're deferring the water is going to affect that water passing through my land over there.
I think the only thing they're looking to do is defer the fire hydrants. The water line is still going to be there. It's just,
No, I'm talking about the wetland.
oh, okay.
It passes through my 2 fields, which you're going to be using for. And I'm the owner of 4 Acre Farms, and that's the 4 acre farm that we're starting over there. So we're going to be grazing animals, and we're working on figuring out a trench that's going to get that water where it needs to go. But I was wondering about the berm on the other side.
Yeah, that's something we're talking through now, is that berm itself, and then, but whatever's done, they're still going to have to provide drainage from the east side to the west side as it drains today in some
Okay.
manner.
Okay, then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Joe?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's close public testimony then. Sounds like there's a few items here. We've been talking at length about all of them. Any thoughts after public testimony or anything?
No.
Okay. Anything else to add? Any commissioners, any other questions you have of the applicant or city staff?
I just say I agree with the applicant's recommendations for exceptions for the 3 conditions.
All 3 of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about the berms, and I think that if the city staff can work out an agreement with dense vegetation that would replace that instead of berms, I prefer that. I think the driveway to the north, I certainly can talk more about that, but I think that just leaving the wetlands as they are is probably the better solution. And then as far as the fire hydrants, I'm concerned with the way that Arlington might be built out, that those fire hydrants might be torn up before they're even used. So if we can't get any clear indication of that, I'd say to defer them.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'm in agreement on the fire hydrants. I'm even wondering, I think this is a preliminary plat, if there's a final plat that comes before us, and if there could be a timeline for that, I mean, deferring into the final plat, maybe that'll be super helpful. I agree with the neighborhood resident. I like the alignment at 36th Street. I think that the flow looks better to me. I think that's what was proposed by city staff. And then I'm still, today's my first day really learning about berms, so I'm indifferent there. I think in terms of, I don't think it's a high traffic area at night. If it certainly was, then I think that I would be more leaning towards berms just to provide that additional barrier. But what I've heard from the applicant is, at nighttime is be a lot of that traffic for the light flashes in.
I think it's important to talk about these projects because they're kind of they're going up everywhere, whether they're distribution centers or data centers. So I think while it's been a lengthy conversation, I think it's been helpful. I think for the fire hydrants, I would recommend that we just condition a deferral agreement so that everyone's on the same page. And so we do our due diligence on that. So I would agree with the exception, but ask for a deferral agreement to be executed. I think I agree with Commissioner Sadowski on using trees, and maybe there's a condition to where there's more heavily vegetation along existing residential structures, and then not impacting the wetlands. And then I think given it's not a distribution center and there's not going to be huge truck traffic, and it doesn't feel like once it's built that it'll ever transition to that. I'm okay with the applicant's existing alignment of the street.
My thought process on it, although I hate to delay anyone's projects, is that understandably the applicant is trying to avoid looking at what mitigation would look like. And my concern about accepting the applicant's requests for those changes on the street alignment and on the berms is that if this was taken to someone and said, hey, look, the city's asking us to realign this street, they're also looking for us to add these berms. My concern is that an expert would say, yeah, that's fine. Like mitigation, you can just move this up further north and it's really not going to be problematic. These aren't established. It's going to cost you more money. Get that you don't want to do that. It's going to cost you time because you'd come here and ask us for it. But my concern is that we are accommodating something that we don't necessarily know is required. And what I would rather do is have the applicant go through that process, submit it to the Army Corps of Engineers or whomever is going to determine whether this wetland that was determined as a jurisdictional wetland, but does not operate as what I think a lot of people picture in their minds when they say wetland, that there would not be a loss of benefit to the area for it to be mitigated. And so that's why I would like to keep everything in the staff report as it is. If we don't do that, I do think we need to, if we're pulling out conditions 1.2 and 1.5, I think it was, then I think we would need to add something back about more heavy vegetation because I think that's omitted currently.
I just think we can condition that there is continual work between staff and the applicant to look at the optimization of trees or this disturbance of the wetland, and I think there's an optimizer. But I still question whether the berm is to be there, but I'm not the expert on drainage. I'm not the expert on the wetlands, but there needs to be some further work, I think, done between staff and applicant on what the optimum solution is.
Just for clarity, are you all, saying Locating the second entrance to align with 36th Street, Northeast 36th as disturbing the wetlands, is that?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it from a neighborhood perspective. I think about people who invested in that space and who are asking for that and who will be there throughout the life cycle. And so I think hearing from them kind of makes me say, you know, we have to do some mitigation. We also have to take care of people. We have to take care of the environment and the wetlands. I get that too, but these are people who can't pick up. Yeah.
At this point, I am supporting what staff has recommended. I'm thinking of what will the entire project end up looking like. We don't have any information on that. That's why I asked for the height of the building. I don't know what kind of lighting you're going to have around there, even though it's not a type of manufacturing place or distribution. At night, I don't know what's going to happen for those residents to have to deal with. As was mentioned by one of our commissioners, it makes a difference when you're driving to see the different heights of buildings and the different material used. As how it affects the view in the neighborhood itself. I did hear Mr. Olafu say that he was willing to work with you, and he put out those 3 types of shrubbery and landscaping effects that would best work. I trust him in being able to work with you to do that. So at this point, I would like to go with what the staff has recommended.
Mr. Rojas, any comments? Okay. From my standpoint, I'm okay with removing the berms. As long as there's a working to get something back in place. As far as the driveway, from my standpoint, I would like to see the connectivity to 36th Street. I think the wetland, although it is something that's been identified by somebody, it's farmed every single year, more than once probably. It sure seems like an opportunity to get that driveway right and then establish an actual wetland after that. And then the last one being the fire hydrants, deferring them to the second phase. At the very least, I believe the southernmost fire hydrant needs to be installed simply because of the connectivity and location of that to the fire department connection, so that you have some water that you can use to pump into that as needed. But if there is a deference of those hydrants, there needs to be some kind of secured deferral agreement in place to get them installed at some point in time. So that's my thought.
Existing fire hydrants. Fire hydrants.
I don't think there's any existing, are there?
Looks like, they're
What page is that of your PDF?
Let me tell you.
Okay, I got it. Okay, no, there's one right there.
And there's
Okay. Got you. I thought there was 0. Sorry.
So how many are we looking to have put in? How many deferred?
That too is this.
Deferring both?
The 2 existing and the 2 proposed are in between the 2 existing. So
Okay.
like it gives it.
Chair Crowell, are you ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
I'm going to go ahead and go with this and understand if it doesn't go. Chair Crowell, I move to approve docket item number 1 with conditions with the following adjustments. On condition number 26, noting that we will defer the installation of both those fire hydrants to phase 2, but with an accompanying deferral agreement. And then
Commissioner,
modifying-
can we clarify and make that secured deferral agreement so that there's no question about that in the future.
Yes, thank you. Adding a secure deferral agreement. And on condition 1.2, restating it to read that revise the landscaping plan to show a berm where it does not impede upon wetlands and continuous row of evergreen shrubs and trees along North Arlington Avenue to screen the existing residences on the east side of North Arlington Avenue per staff approval prior to ordinance request.
Second.
Okay, and so got a motion and a second, just a little discussion here. Anything on the driveway, 1E?
I would left it as is.
Left it as is.
So, yeah, I just leaving the condition number 5 in there, asking for the alignment, which would require the applicant to then mitigate the wetlands.
Okay. Yeah, I relabeled that 1E instead of 1.5 or 1, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I try to read a condition that's kind of standard for the 26?
Or 26, okay.
Great.
It should state that the developer enter into a secure deferral agreement for the installation of the 2 fire hydrant. Travis, when do you want that done by?
3 fire hydrants.
3 fire hydrant. Travis, can you give us
Well, the secure deferral agreement would have to be done prior to approval of a final plat if this is being platted.
okay. So that way we know what it's supposed to do and when it's supposed to be
Okay,
done.
can you read that all again and then,
That the developer enter into a secure deferral agreement for the 3 fire hydrants prior to approval of the final plat.
So I'm going to amend my motion to reflect what Olafu just said for condition 26.
still remain your second? Okay. So I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 1 with changes to and now I've lost.
1.2 and then 6 and then
Okay.
26.
Can you clarify what you on the berm and the wet?
1.2, the main change was revise the landscaping plan to show a berm where it does not impede the wetlands. So certainly don't want to, if it impedes, don't put a berm there. But if it doesn't impede, put it there.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crow,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes 8-0. Thank you for your time and working through that today.
Thank you.
Like I can go planting.
Okay. All right, we're done with the first docket item and it's only 10:25. Commissioner Hill, you get to do docket item 2. I need to recuse myself
Okay.
from this one.
Joe, will you read docket item 2?
Docket item 2 is case number SUP 2023-00015. The request to approve a special use permit for an event space in District B3-2 on about 0.15 acres located on the west side of Truce between 45th Street on the north and Brush Creek Boulevard on the south. Olufu Agbaji is the staff planner.
Thanks, Joe. This next item is case number 2023-00015. This is an SUP for the Firehouse Event Center. Joe, if you can promote Erica Hartley, I think she's online. I don't know if I didn't see Lance Carlton online, but Erica is the applicant. So now we move down to the Midtown area, and this is next is located on Troost Avenue between 45th Street and Brush Creek Boulevard. So again, this is an old fire station. And back in 2029, this was approved for an event center. And today's request is just to get a reapproval. When it came through in 2019, when it came through then, it was approved for 2 years just to make sure that that operation is kind of compatible with the neighborhood. And there were certain conditions put on it at that time, and it was approved by the BZA. So the overall data on the site is that it's 0.15 acres, zone B3-2 is also within the Trust Avenue corridor overlay district. And again, it's a reapproval of an existing SUP, and this is for the Firehouse Event Center. It's the reuse and renovation of the firehouse to allow for an event center. Back in July of 2019, the BZA granted approval for 2 years, and the applicant is back for a reapproval, and this time to be granted for the rest of the life of the operation at this site. So the original staff report had existing conditions that was approved back then, and when I issued my staff report, my intent was to keep those conditions because that was what was agreed with the neighborhood. But since then, they had a neighborhood meeting back on April 20th, and they have restructured those conditions, and they have, between the neighborhood and the developer, have come up with 4 new conditions that kind of merge the old conditions with new ones, and I just saw them. So the applicant will be able to express what these conditions means to you as they go forward. So again, this is the existing fire station. It's a Firehouse Event Center, KC, and center for any kind of corporate. I think I included one of their brochure in your staff report. So any corporate event, weddings, bar mitzvah, anything you want to do, they're open for business, and they've been doing that for a while. Approved floor plan, and nothing is changing. The use is the same. The site is the same. And with that, staff's recommendation is for approval. And this time it's permanently subject to the 4 conditions as discussed with the neighborhood. And I will not read this, but I will have Erica explain how they arrive at these 4 conditions. But these are the 4 conditions that staff is recommending. And that ends my presentation. I want her to express how they arrive at these 4 conditions with the Plan Commission. That ends my presentation. Now take any questions.
Erica, we ask questions or?
No, you can ask questions, but I'll have her explain what this new conditions, because my staff report had the original conditions of approval, and then after the neighborhood meeting, they arrived at these 4 conditions which they want to move forward with.
Hi, this is Lance Carlton. I'm here with Erica, so we're on the same Zoom invite, I guess. And I'm happy to briefly talk about the 4 conditions, or if you've read them and don't have questions. But we, as part of the special use permit renewal, we engaged the neighborhood. They've been great to work with over the last several years. We couldn't have anticipated some of the things that had gone on during events. And so these conditions, we met with the neighborhood and came up with these conditions to help alleviate some concerns. One is shifting a fence. We put a fence up on the property line, but since the houses that abut the property line, some of the garages are positioned on the property line, so they're having some maintenance issues. So we've agreed to shift the fence about 24 to 30 inches into our property. And we're happy to do that because it'll help them with maintenance. So that's the first one. The second one is something that we learned as we were operating the event space, that we would shut our events down and lock the doors. Everyone was supposed to leave, but we found that some folks were loitering in the parking lot after the event center was closed. So the condition here for number 2 is really us ushering the guests out of the parking lot by a certain time. And that way, we can control that better. And that really just goes back to noise. And then fireworks have been a concern. Sometimes during events, guests have sprinklers and or sparklers, sorry, not sprinklers. So we've put in here a condition that will abide by local rules and laws on the premises. And as such, those laws don't allow for fireworks. and sprinklers. It's really sprinklers, or not sprinklers, sparklers that are the issue. And then the fourth one, is that an adjustment?
It's just a reiteration that
Okay.
they wanted. to
The
make
event
sure.
hours, we just wanted to reiterate the event hours, so that might be a duplicate of what was already there. But we've really, just to recap, we've met with the neighbors 2 or 3 times now since this renewal started. And I feel like we have a fairly good relationship, but there's always some fine tuning when we're budding residents. And I think these conditions help them with maintenance of their buildings and help with noise and getting people off the premises by a specific period, and then the fireworks. So that's it. We're really excited that the event center, we've had some tough times during COVID, but we're really pumping a lot of time, effort, and finances into the success of the firehouse. And we're excited to continue the operations and really bring people to Troost. This is, having events here is a great way to expose people to Troost and sort of see what it's becoming. But secondly, the event space has also been really well received by the nonprofit community. I would say we focus on nonprofit events and also weddings. And so the nonprofits have really embraced it, and we're happy to be here to support their needs. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission to staff?
Yeah, I had a quick question. First of all, beautiful venue. My sister got married there. And to also preface, I'm not a parking guy, but I was wondering how the residents have received really, really, really minimal parking for an event space. And I know you're probably a historic structure, so you're probably probably grandfathered in, but I was wanted to ask you about that, and if you had thought about working with some of the other people along that area to maybe use that parking during events.
Yes, good question. As part of early on, during, I guess, the first special use permit process, we talked about, and we still have in place, a parking agreement with the church across the street. A gentleman by the name of Stan Archie owns the church across the street, and they have ample parking. So typically during events, we are utilizing their parking, and our security staff that we're supposed to have at every event is pointing people in the right direction across the street to park. So yes, we only have, call it 15 parking spaces at the firehouse, but we have the street parking, but then really a bulk of the parking is accommodated across the street where they have some parking lots. So I hope during your wedding, you were able to utilize that parking across the street, but there is an agreement in place in coordination with the church for parking.
Cool, thank you.
Other questions? I have one question, Olafu. Just remind me with the special use agreement, is this for the duration of the time that, does it go with the property? So if there's a sale, it comes back, or it stays with the property? And is this unlimited, or is this up until the 10-year and then they come back? So just remind me.
This request is in perpetuity, so it will go with the land. The reason they had the 2 years was just to see, I think the neighbors asked for the 2 years, so they will revisit it and had the opportunity to revise the conditions as you see. So for 3 new conditions and then keeping the conditions of hours of operation. So that's why we had the 2 years.
Thank you. And then for the applicant, with those new conditions, I think 2 or 3 of those, are you embedding those in your lease agreement in terms of people having to make sure that when they sign up, they understand to vacate the parking lot? The sparklers, I'll tell you, I went to a wedding where they had hydro sparklers. So it looks like fire, but it's really water. So,
Oh, cool. We're going to have to look into that because people love their sparklers. So, but yes, we will, as in our rental contracts with folks renting the space, these conditions, well, not shifting the fence, but the vacating the parking lot will be part of the new rental contract, and the firehouse and then the event hours will all be incorporated into the contracts with these renters. And what was that? What was it? A hydro sparkler?
It's like a hydro sparkler. They sit on the floor, and you know how people walk through and they like sparkle up. I wanted them for an event, but Arrowhead said no, even though they were hydro. But they're super cool. So I think that if you look at them, they look so realistic, but it's actually water.
Commissioner
Oh,
Hill,
cool.
I've learned something today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bring some in. Especially if we finish early one day, we just count on the sparklers, right? If there's no other questions for the commissioners, Joe, we open it up for public testimony? Let me know if there's anyone who's raised their hand online or in the chamber, if you would like to provide testimony on this docket.
Madam Chair, it appears no one is in the chamber wishing to speak, and there's no one on Zoom as well.
Well, we'll close public testimony. There are no other questions. We'll take a motion.
One question, Lance, I was curious, is there any crosswalks planned for that area to get people? Because I know like I'm close to an event spot on 63rd and I always worry about people coming out of an event and pouring out into the street to cross the street. Is there anything?
No, it's actually a good thought. There is nothing in the works. I will say there's another development happening on the north and south side of us that hopefully in the next couple of years, something does happen, but I would think something to be coordinated with them as part of this other larger development. But no, there's nothing, but I'd be happy to reach out to Public Works and see if there is a way to put some sort of mid-block crosswalk in. But there is, I believe, a crosswalk about 100 feet up to the north. But I will certainly look into that with Public Works.
Right.
A motion?
Chair Hill, I move to approve docket item number 2 with conditions.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Lisa, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 7-0. Thank you for providing event space and good luck in the future.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yes. there was
Okay.
one.
Just making sure. Okay, let's move on to docket item number 3, please.
All right, docket item 3 is case number CPC 2023-00020. Request to approve a development plan for a mixed-use project in District DC 15 on about 1 acre located at West 14th Street and Wyandotte Street. Larissa Chambi is the staff planner.
Good morning. Let me pull up my presentation. All right, as Joe stated, this is CPC 2023-00020 for a development plan at 14th and Wyandotte. It's to allow a mixed-use building and is located in the greater downtown area. Here's an aerial of the area. The lots to the north and the south are zone DC-15, and then the lots directly east and west are zoned UR. The mixed-use development plan is for a 27-story building with 200 hotel rooms and 300 residential units. It'll include ground floor retail and associated amenities and a parking garage. The use is immediately west of the Power and Light Building, east of the Municipal Theater and then south of the Crown Plaza Hotel. Just to make it a little easier, the development is split with the uses. So just in the northern portion of the development is the hotel, and then on the southern side, it's all the residential units. The developer worked with staff to activate this bottom floor right here along the corner of 14th and Wyandotte to include additional retail space and connect the pedestrian connections along this block. Here's a more detailed look at that ground floor. And there is a service alley along here, which I'll explain a little more in a minute. Here is the circulation. The downtown core does not require parking. However, the applicant is proposing, I believe it is 358 parking spaces. Access to the parking garage is only here on 14th Street. All of the residential parking can enter here, and then the valet area for the hotel is only accessed through this 14th Street entrance with a valet and a parking garage gate. So once they hit the gate, that is only reserved for the hotel uses. In order to get to this entrance, the valet will have to go up to 12th Street and then back down on Baltimore to turn right into that parking garage entrance. The applicant is also proposing this pedestrian tunnel located right where that circle is. It'll create a connection to the existing uses and allow for a more distinct pedestrian experience. This entrance for the alleyway, I just want to point out very quickly, is only for loading, pickup, and move-in or tenant move-in, and won't be accessed for anything else. The plan complies with all standards of the zoning and development code and the greater downtown area plan. Here is a rendering of the proposed building. As you can see, they've kind of pushed away from the power and light building to kind of allow more sunlight to go through the two buildings, and it meets the setback of the existing power and light building. It takes a lot of the architectural features of the surrounding buildings and matches a few of the other buildings in the area with the construction materials of glazing, metal wall panels, cement wall panel, and metal screen systems throughout. And it has varying architectural features as well. And then here is the site from the corner of 14th and Wyandotte as it is now. And the applicant has requested that staff remove condition 7 and then revise condition 27. Condition 7 is partially a duplicate of condition 27. So staff is supportive of removing that. And then adding some more detail onto condition 27 to prohibit left turn lanes onto Wyandotte Street from the valet area. And staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners to city staff?
I have one that's primarily curiosity. How do professionals figure out what the proper amount of truck access is? I was like surprised that with that many units, you didn't have more trash that was generated, and like the trash room wasn't larger, that dumpster space was larger. How is that figured out?
That's a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, let's bring the applicant forward. Don't mind. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Liam with Lex Living. I think in the room we may have Murdad, and also online we have Roxanne, Vic, and Josh.
Okay. Had a little hard time hearing you there. Excuse me. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Liam Dye. Address is 1 North Taylor Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit more about your project?
For sure. Let me just share my screen. We prepared a few slides to share today. Alrighty, let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today for our hearing. My name is Liam Dime with Flex Living, and as I mentioned before, I think we have Josh, Vic, Rox, and a few others from our team online as well. So the first point that we want to touch on is that our design process has really been a process that's happened with the community. And so we've worked with Downtown Council, the Neighborhood Association, Historic Kansas City to inform our design and make sure that we're creating a project that benefits downtown and helps the city to achieve the goals that they're looking for. And so we've received letters of support for the project from Downtown Council, Historic KC, City Manager, the Mayor's Office, as well as a few residents of the City of Kansas City. And working with the community, we hosted multiple meetings with the Downtown Neighborhood Association and Historic KC that led to revisions in both the building massing as well as the facade and the ground floor. So on this side, you can kind of see what we proposed to see initially, saw in news articles, and what we have proposed today. And so some of those changes that we made include creating spacing between our project and the Power and Light building, reducing the building height, allowing the crown of the Power and Light building to be seen from more angles. We cleaned up the glass facade, making a little bit more modern and clean design. We incorporate stone-like elements and bronze copper tones around the base and as well as the top of the tower. We also align the setbacks of our building with those of the neighboring Power and Light and Crown Plaza buildings, all in response to comments that the neighborhood and DNA had. And so this provides a few other angles of what the building looks like today and some of those changes that we incorporated. Downtown Neighborhood Association provided a few requests that we were more than happy to incorporate for the most part. Those requests include adding curb bump outs at the northeast corner of 14th and Wyandotte Street. DNA also requested ground floor setback reduction along Wyandotte. We were able to expand our enclosed retail space at the hard corner of 14th and Wyandotte. And we also are making sure to include patio space along the sidewalks to create an active ground floor. Most of our ground floor is also transparent facade in keeping with DNA's urban and walkable goals. DNA also requested that we potentially remove the valet curb cut along Wyandotte Street. However, that's a change that we don't think is viable based off of the hotel operations and needs. For example, hotel brands that we've been in discussions with all are going to require a covered guest drop-off. Additionally, many of the existing downtown hotels have covered drop-offs. And so if we didn't have a drop-off, that would be a negative to picking our hotel to stay at for events as well as standard guests. Instead, we propose utilizing trees and planters to beautify the drop-off area and to improve the pedestrian experience for pedestrians traveling north and south along Wyandotte Street. As Larissa touched on, we're in alignment with the staff conditions for the project, as well as the potential revision to condition number 27. Hotel brands require flexible operations, and so having the right in, left in will be helpful in selecting a hotel, as well as operating that hotel once it opens. Additionally, many of the other hotels in the area have unrestricted drive access, including the Crown Plaza that is directly north of us. So that's the information that we had together today in this PowerPoint. Would love to take any questions that you have for us.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant?
I just wondered if you could talk about your coordination with the Power and Light building ownership and construction activity, structural considerations, all of that.
Sure. And I'm not sure if Josh wants to jump in at any point, but in terms of structural, we've been working to set our building back from Power and Light in terms of their foundation work. We've been working with our structural engineers as well as geotechnical team to make sure that we'll be able to construct our project without negatively impacting them on that front. In terms of the Power and Light building and its vertical elements, we've been working to align our setbacks with where Power and Light's windows are facing the west. They don't really have many of them, but where they do, we're trying to create proper separation between our building and their building's windows. For the most part, Power and Light is just a blank concrete wall facing this westerly direction. And so there's very minimal blockage of windows or other elements of their building.
I guess my follow-up question, because those are residential, is there any sort of consideration in terms of hours of construction activity, et cetera?
It's not something that we've discussed yet. I think hours of construction activity is going to be pretty similar to other buildings going up in downtown. And that's a question that we can work through with the construction team once we reach that point. I think we definitely want to be understanding though that on the same block, we have a hotel directly to the north, as well as a residential building in the Power and Light to the east, and to the northeast, the smaller Power and Light North building. Definitely all aspects that we would plan to keep in mind as we construct this project.
How do you all determine the amount of waste that is generated and how much space is needed? I imagine the dumpster will just get picked up daily and that's determined that that's sufficient for the number of units there.
Yes, that's correct. Our engineering consultant was able to come up with the sizing for the trash rooms as well as trash chutes and dumpster space. As far as the pickup cycle, I'm a little bit less familiar with what that will look like, but I can say that we're sizing the facilities for the needs of this project.
I have a question on your information you displayed. The very last question was in red, the response dealing with the in and out of the valet parking. You want to address that a little bit more for me?
Sure. So that's the revised condition that we worked with Larissa and that Larissa presented during her initial staff report presentation. So I believe our development team and city staff is on the same page now with that revised condition 27. Basically what we were looking for is to allow cars coming south down Wyandotte to turn left into the valet drop-off, as well as allow cars coming north up Wyandotte to turn right into the valet drop-off.
Josh Doss, DLR Group. Just want to clarify. So all the green were the requests that we are meeting, that we're going to work with, and the red is the only one that we were not going to meet their request. So we've done everything they've asked besides that one, just because of the way the hotel operations needs to occur. We really feel that drop-off configuration is important to the success of the project.
That's what I thought I was interpreting. I thought Marissa had said only, was it right or left out? Or she showed the example of the red line going around the block. But if I'm looking at that, y'all want to be able to come out and turn either direction, right?
So the way the drop off will work is guests can enter both ways, right in or left in, but then we will direct all traffic, and you can see with the geometry, to be right out only. So ingress is not impeded. You can go either way. And then the direction out is just north, right?
The only exit for the right in, right out that we're concerned with is right. It's the northern end of the valet. And they've designed it so that people can't enter through that top part. And then we are okay with the left turn in to the southern portion of the valet drop off.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions?
Want to point out that other than the curb cuts, the way that it's integrated with the overhang of the building is subtle, so.
So on the residential portion, did I see that there is a outside area at the top?
Yeah, so we are incorporating several terraced areas that some will be private balconies for some of the units and some will be public terraces. There is also a food and beverage venue and the pool at the very top of the building. So there are outdoor terraces that are available for the residents and hotel guests.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. If there's anybody that would like to speak regarding docket item number 3, please come forward or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, I see no one in the chamber wishing to speak and no one on Zoom has raised their hand.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add about the project? Okay.
We don't have any other comments.
All right. If there's nothing else to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
Can I ask a quick question? A normal one, time frame?
I knew I should have waited.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking. So if it gets approved, what's the timeline?
So we are working through, obviously, starting design, all that kind of stuff. There's some other aspects of the project I'll let Liam talk about, but we're working through advancing as we speak. We've already submitted for the alley vacation between the properties. And so that's a process that we're working on right now. So we're working through the entitlements and then hopefully start design soon.
So it would take 18 months, 2 years, what are we looking at?
We'd hope to start construction sometime in 2024, 2025. As Josh touched on, we still need to design the rest of the building as well as move forward with the incentive and financing process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Chair Corral, I move to approve docket item number 3 with conditions, removing condition number 7 and modifying condition number 27 to add the text as presented, adding on to Wyandotte Street.
Second.
So I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 3, removing condition 7 and revising 27. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye. I just want to thank you for doing a lot of due diligence before coming to this meeting, because I think it shows that you got a lot of consensus before bringing this forwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it looks like the motion passes 8-0. Thank you for bringing that project in. And like Commissioner Sadowski said, thanks for putting all the effort in on the front end so that we can make it go a lot quicker through our process as well. So good luck as you move forward.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to docket item number 4, please. Does anybody need to take a break by the side?
I'll just grab some. We doing lunch?
Well, that's a question I have. So we've got,
Yes.
Say yes.
well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases left. And hope to be done before 1. Is that possible? We got 2 hours.
And yes, can we have a quick break?
Yeah, let's have a 15-minute break before we get started again. I apologize to everybody out there. So if it is, say, 11 o'clock right now, we'll be back at 11:15. With the intent to finish up by 1.
Right.
Pick up speed, you know? Freaking berms, you know?
Good discussion on
Yeah,
that.
we're berms, we would have been done by now.
Yeah.
And you do have lunch coming, so no worries.
Either way, we're.
Nothing, no comments.
You can trade your golf cart in now. Yeah.
I just realized it in the map.
Priorities.
I know.
About the energy. The Johnson County. Down there.
Well, and that's my.
Course. I don't know. But you. Falling back on, I had to go to the.
Definitely, I mean. Man, I never. I think so.
We restart the meeting again once we get the recording going. Who's got the record button? It's still paused. Here we go. Okay. All right, welcome back. So we're ready for docket item number 4, please, Joe.
All right, docket item 4 is case CPC 2023-00037. Request to approve the council approved sign plan for Metro North Crossing, which is located in District UR on about 100 acres at the northeast corner of Northwest Berry Road and Highway 169. Genevieve Kahn is the staff planner.
Morning.
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 All right. Docket item number 4 is for a council approved signage plan for the Metro North Crossing development. Site is generally located in the Northland, as you can see by my arrow. Here is an outline of the entire site. It's zoned UR and it is approximately 103 acres. There's been a handful of, amendments over time as plans change, as it's such a large development. Just to kind of refresh your memory about what a council approved signage plan is, because we don't have them incredibly often in front of you. The council approved signage plan can be sought for developments in B3, B4, D, UR, MPD, Shoal Creek, and KCIA zoning districts. So in this case, it's a UR district, and the site must have 10 contiguous acres of area. Like I said, this is 100. So Metro North Crossing meets those eligibility requirements. And then numbers 1 through 7 here are the standards that staff reviewed to in the staff report more in detail. So you can see details as to how they meet or not meet all of those standards. This is the site plan showing where all the proposed signs will be placed. There are 4 proposed signs, which I'll show you a little bit more detail about. There's the primary gateway sign, tertiary monument signs, wayfinding signage, and then the large development sign that can be seen off of Highway 169. And then there's also an existing monument sign on this site for the Woodstone Apartments. So to show you what each of those signs look like, here is the primary gateway feature monument sign that will be located at the southwest corner of the entire development. So when you're driving on Berry, and then over along the left side here is Summit, or I believe there's an on-ramp there to 169. Excuse me. The current plans show these individual tenant signs here to the right of the sign. Staff has added a condition of approval that these panels are removed prior to the ordinance request when this goes forward to be heard at council. You'll see in my next slide that there are also 4 multi-tenant, on the plans are called tertiary monument signs that provide plenty of space around the entire development for individual tenant advertising. Sorry. So as we can see as the gateway sign, this is to show the entrance to the development itself, Metro North Crossing. And in the table here, which is kind of small, you can see that the signage area exceeds what is permitted by the code, which again is the purpose of the council approved signage plan. It allows for flexibility in size, type, number of signs. But in this case, staff does not support the excess size of this signage due to accommodating those individual tenant panels for this specific sign. Then next we have the tertiary monument sign. There's 4 of these at the intersections that lead to the development. And then smaller over here, we have the wayfinding signage, which will be primarily on the interior of the site. And then lastly, we have the large development pylon sign, which accommodates for 9 tenant panels. This will be adjacent to the highway over here, 169. This street view is looking south towards the site. You can see Macy's in the background here, and T-Shots is over off to the side. This sign is very tall. It is 44 feet tall, which also exceeds the standards in the zoning code. However, staff is supportive of this excess in height due to the location it's being placed and the nature of this being a highway advertising sign. So overall, staff recommends approval subject to the 2 conditions that are in the staff report. I can take any questions, and Dave Horn is here as well as the applicant.
All right, thank you. Any questions for city staff? Okay, welcome. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm Dave Horn, Metro North Crossing. And we are obviously proud of the signage package that we put together. We have an issue with the removal of the tenant names on the gateway sign. From a architectural perspective, the write-up from the staff report made it sound like it's cluttered and, you know, maybe not visually pleasing. Personally, I think it's a very nice looking sign. But the biggest problem we have is we had our design criteria approved. And when we did the initial UR filing, and in our sign in the design criteria, the section on entries and gateways, and I'll read this to you. Each designated entry/gateway shall have a monument sign identifying the project development. Next bullet point, the sign may contain the names of tenants within the development. Based on that, we have gone down the road for the last 5 years in trying to get this development moving forward. Probably the biggest hurdle we had to overcome was renegotiating an overall development agreement for that entire 103 acres with Macy's. We got that done. And in that operations and easement agreement, huge document with Macy's, they've given them the right to have their name on that sign. So it's, you know, we negotiated going forward with multiple tenants based on the language in the design criteria, and, you know, which is why I'm here today. We would like to have that modification to the sign removed so that we can have tenant names on that sign. And I know that Genevieve alluded to the 4 tertiary signs that has room for tenants. Each of those tertiary signs has room for 6 tenants. That's 24 in total. And I think the very first thing that Genevieve had up on this screen showed the magnitude of this development. It's 103 acres. We have already developed as much ground at Metro North as we redeveloped at Antioch Crossing. But when you go out there, it doesn't look like we've done anything. It's just massive. And one thing retail tenants demand is signage. So I believe in, and as to the architectural and visual sign itself, Scott Sloggy with Sloggy Architects designed the signage package with us. And I have asked Scott just to come and comment on his opinion of that sign.
Thank you, David. Could you pull up that exhibit, Genevieve, please? We were the development architects working with Metro North Crossing, as well as the authors of the signage package that's before you today. We looked at that development sign in the corner. We looked at it from a proper weighting perspective and proportion, how it would work. In fact, you'll notice that there's a graphic to the left of the sign that is an illustration of the balloons that used to be inside the mall. For those of you who would have ever gone there, the balloons would go up and down. They're fire driven, that would go up and down on cables. So that was a way to reference some of the history of Metro North Crossing. To the right of that, we have, we think, a very convenient and appropriate massing to show where those tenant signs would go. So it's integrated with the sign and doesn't become clutter or a detriment to the overall proportions of the sign.
Any questions for the applicant on the signs?
I guess I have one more just because
Okay.
I thought I was, and Genevieve, you referred to two. But
The other condition is just that when all the lighting is installed, that it conforms to, or sorry, when the signage is installed, it conforms to all the lighting standards.
okay, fine.
Just blanket.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If I'm following correctly, the signage that is at the corner could tell us who is in the development, as well as the signage that you can see from the highway would list the tenants that are there as well.
That is correct.
So if you remove the tenants on the corner, we wouldn't know who's in there?
Well, and once again, due to the size of this development, we have capacity for 24 tenant names on the tertiary sign. Have 8 displayed on the monument sign. Check my math. I think it gets us to 32. And I think we have 9 on the large pylon. It's 41. That's my math, right? And clearly we're going to have substantially more than 41 different concepts in that development when it's done. So, and retailers, they will take as many signs as they can get. And it gives us an opportunity to attract tenants by saying, hey, obviously we can't do with everybody, the little small mom and pop, coffee shop or whatever, but signage is critical to a retail mixed use development.
So you also mentioned wayfinding signs, so that's what the tertiary signs would be? Because I'm looking as myself being a customer.
Right.
I don't want to get lost trying to find what I'm looking for.
Right. The tertiary signs are the main entry points into the development. We have one on Berry Road and North Wyandotte, Berry Road, Northwest Jefferson, Wyandotte and 85th Terrace. And then at the northern portion of the development by our Tee Shots golf concept, there's a tertiary sign leading south into the development.
Those regular customers would know which sign to look for entry. If I'm looking for the golf place, I'm gonna go to that entry to come in.
We are going to try to make it as, easy as possible. But once again, there will be tenants in there that aren't on a sign.
I understand.
There will be large tenants or big name tenants that will be on more than one sign because they require it. But the bottom message here is we need as much capacity as we can get.
Without
Tenant
confusing us.
signage. Pardon?
Without confusing me.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Are you delineating or differentiating what tenants can go on the North Crossing sign?
It basically, and it happens in every development we've been involved with. It's like whoever comes to the party earliest is most likely to get signage. And if we have a big tenant, a big name tenant that we're working with that says, we'll do this deal, but we need to be on the pylon sign, We need to be on the gateway sign, and we need to be on the Wyandotte tertiary sign. And for a big enough deal, we would say yes.
For the same tenant,
Pardon?
for the same tenant can go multiple signs, just.
Correct.
City is like.
That
Macy's
I
for
need
lack
you
of better word.
Microphone there.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to say that, in terms of just your signage capacity, but a big box tenant could go on multiple signs. It's not that you're trying to give everyone who's in there a sign.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And I imagine as you build up the south side of the site, Macy's gets more, I mean, right now, as you look at Street View, you can see Macy's because there's not the new development, but I imagine it's pretty embedded in the middle of the development. So you need some kind of signage to make people aware that Macy's is back.
Correct. And in fact, in part of this development, I don't know how many of you have been by there, but we kind of started from the north. Maybe not smart, I don't know, but we started from the north with our T-Shots development and moving closer to Berry Road. And we've just completed 249 apartment units, which like 90% leased already. And as part of that development, one of the buildings has 30,000 square foot of retail on the lower level and 36 townhomes sitting on top of it. It sits back quite a ways from Berry Road. And I don't know if you've heard, but we very recently finalized a lease agreement with 3rd Street Social, which it's the Summit Grill guys. And I mean, just fabulous operators. And that's a use that we would dedicate more than one location to, just so everybody knows they're there.
Maybe I missed it from city staff. Is this more of a like a design difference versus a regulatory piece with removing the request to remove the tenant signage off of the earth crossing? I mean,
So, yeah, with the council approved signage plan, it's creating a lot of flexibility. The names assigned to each of these signs are made up names. These don't align with anything in the code. And again, that's because if we look at the table the applicant provided to show us, all the data and everything, we're going off of what our code identifies as a development district sign. Now they're using this signage because it's one of the larger ones, because it's a whole district. They're using this for this gateway sign. They're using the standards for the tertiary monument signs. So it's very flexible. And it was a staff decision that we don't typically, first of all, see this, nor approve signs that is a gateway entrance to a development with individual tenant signs, but also based on our review of all the locations of those multi-tenant signs along Berry Road, and hearing, that multiple signs may be utilized by one tenant. We just had concerns about clutter on Berry Road and the signage. This is a great development, and the signs, the architecture of this is great. And we want to have this clean, great design and work together with the developer and the architects with this. And that was just staff's review of concern for clutter. Obviously, we can't have a sign for every single tenant that will be in the space. So really just for the long term, it can always be amended. But that was just staff's review to take out those 8. Also, this one provides 8 panels, and they're small. I don't have the exact dimensions of how large each of them are, but again, maybe if we went with something like 3 panels to accommodate some of those larger, more prominent tenants, staff may be agreeable to that. And just having a consistent messaging. The design of this is very sleek with the dark color and the white panel. We didn't talk about what they would look like when they actually have the tenant name in them. So if we did go ahead and keep some of these tenant panels on this gateway sign, it might include a condition of keeping those like the pin letters, so everything is uniform.
That's what I was gonna ask, if it was like Macy's in a standard way, or if every tenant has their unique logo. And I think for this sign, if you can agree to have a standard name and a standard font on the front, that is speaks to a lot. You know, I don't like it when I drive somewhere and I see like 15 different logos on it, you know, so.
And if I
would
could
like that
add,
condition.
I'm sorry, if I could add on to what Genevieve was saying is what we have found on these signs since the code started allowing the council approved sign plans several years ago now, is that when people use their branded imagery and they put them in all these little tenant slots, it gets very busy and very confusing for the driver. This is an auto-oriented area, so most people are reading these signs while they're driving. So I do think that it's possible to accommodate the developer's need to have the tenant signage, but I do think some uniformity in terms of the imagery is helpful for the reader and less clutter, appears less cluttering.
I will be in favor of that condition.
And one of the things we had discussed that I think, and I've seen this duplicated all around the metropolitan area many times, but on these types of signs, what I would not want is I wouldn't want some tenant on there that has a red and gold pattern to their logo, or, you know, pink and yellow or whatever. It needs to be white. I think just the same. I personally think the individual tenant's font would be fine. I've seen that and I think it looks great, but as long as it's all white, you know, I think on this background.
That be
wanna go.
consistent on all the signs, that same approach?
Pardon?
Would that be consistent on all the signs to have the white lettering with?
That is true on all the tertiary signs, same basic thing. Correct.
That seems like a good.
Staff
Yeah,
would
but
be
you have
okay
people
with
who
that.
have like the cursive insignia versus your standard letters, but I mean, I guess it's better than.
And just to jump in, I mean, if you're Starbucks or Office Depot, you want your logo up there because that people are going to recognize that before they're going to read Starbucks. So I think there has to be some flexibility to let them do what they think is best for their business. Realizing that we all, I think, including the applicant, are on the same page. We don't like those signs where it's just 15 different colors and marks, and it is a massive headache. But based upon the quality of, design or the quality of the sign packages you put together, I feel as though we could trust that they're going to do something that is aesthetically legible.
The other thing that's nice about keeping the font is that for people who are driving, like psychologically, they can catch the name faster than they can read
Exactly.
individual.
And I'll make another comment here. I mean, this is what we're requesting and what we want to get approved, to have the capacity for 8 tenants. Don't know that there will ever be 8 tenants on here. This thing is designed, they're individual panels. Somebody could take 2. They could take 2 up and down, but it would be, we're not going to be giving this to a whole bunch of little, we've already committed it to one that I wish we hadn't, but anyway. So we're wanting this to get approved, but whether or not there'll be 8 different tenants on there in the future, I don't know.
Any other questions?
No, I have a comment. I appreciate Genevieve bringing up the uniformity on Berry Road. We do know that there is some concern of how that looks. So thank you for bringing that out.
Why are you looking at me?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for your comment on it.
Yeah, outside of the signage, do you mind giving us a little update on Metro North Crossing as a whole, just how it's going? And
Well, basically, obviously, we've got the tee shots concept opening. Currently talking to friends at City Planning about adding a significant pickleball attraction to that entertainment venue. And that would be, hopefully, if everything goes right, we'll have that open this fall. As I mentioned, the 241 unit apartments completed and the lease up has been fabulous. I think we're at 90%, 91% leased. And of the 30,000 square foot of retail space, we have moved our offices up there and occupy. There's two wings of this building that aren't right on the main street. They're kind of like the least desirable piece of the retail space in there. And we've got probably of the 30,000, we're probably about 16,000 committed for the Third Street Social, very upscale nail salon that you can have a drink while you're getting your nails done, I guess. A local Hull House coffee concept. And then we're working on a couple fitness venues for that same building. Then obviously in the Southwest Quadrant, we've got Hawaiian Brothers. The Whataburger now is open. And just kind of an aside, I should be sharing, well, I guess it doesn't matter. But they opened in Lee Summit and one in Overland Park. And I probably shouldn't say the numbers, but they opened pretty similar volume for the first couple of weeks. And it's big numbers they were doing. First couple of weeks at Metro North, it was probably about 1.5 times what the other two locations did. There's such a pent up demand. But we're still plugging away, trying to get more concepts, and it's a big area.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, with
Get
that,
grass to grow,
let's,
Tyler. I get grass to grow.
I appreciate it.
let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anyone out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 4, please come forward or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, there's no one in the chamber wishing to speak and no one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else you'd like to add? Any other questions? Okay, all right. So I think the thought is the condition number 2 about removal of the the very right side of the sign, or maybe modifying it. I think it sounds like everybody's in favor of modifying it to have a uniform color and text.
Yeah, my preference would be just leave it up to them and just strike it, but I would be supportive of something that limits the background color to being consistent, so that all the background colors are consistent. Then again, that said, if they were to take the 4 and the 4 and bisect it and gave one whole section to one whole tenant, and you wanted that to be green in the background, then all of a sudden we condition it so they can't make that background green. So that's why I would say let's just leave it up to them, but I'd be happy to vote on something or vote for approval on something that has a white background as well.
Second the motion.
And maybe if I could just clarify for the commissioners, the process, so maybe you have an idea of how you might want to modify this condition, is when we do get permits in, which I don't believe we actually get permits for changing the panels at all, right? Okay. But basically when staff gets a signed permit review, we pull up the approved plan and say, yes, what they're doing is allowed. But in this case, I guess we wouldn't get a review, but basically staff needs to have a clear idea of what we can approve permitting wise. And I know they're already going to be working with the horns on what you're permitting also. So as clear as possible would be great.
You could say that if the tenant signage is the full amount as shown on the approved plans, or anything more than half the amount shown on the approved plans is installed, then it needs to have consistent color, and but they can have whatever branding they want. That can be up to them. The lettering and the logos can be on there, but the color of the material would be consistent. Whereas if it's fewer than half, then they can, that we wouldn't have the clutter concerns if there were fewer tenant signs on each of these signs. It's just when you start stacking them all up and with all the different colors and logos, it gets confusing for readers.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. That makes sense. Chair Corral, I move to approve docket item number 4 with conditions and amending condition number 2 to state that the background color of the panels on the primary gateway shall be consistent with each other unless unless one tenant comprises half or more of the allowed tenant signage.
Does that work, Joe?
Yeah, did the commission just want this to apply to that one sign, or was it, I know one of you asked if it was all of them earlier.
But
I don't know if
tertiary was also in there, but I don't recall how many.
Yeah, I was making it specific to the one that was called out and then letting the applicant decide what they think is best on the others, since staff had seemed to think that that was okay to trust the applicant on it.
Yeah, we're just asking for clarification. We don't have an opinion about the others.
Okay, so that only applies towards the gateway monument. Okay,
Second.
so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 4 and modifying condition number 2 as stated through the motion. Lisa, can you take roll call on the motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes in 8-0. Thank you for coming in and
Very much.
good luck moving forward. I use his. All
Okay.
right, let's go to docket item number 5, please.
All right, docket item 5 is case number SUP 2023-00011. Request to approve a special use permit to allow for a hotel along a boulevard in District DX 15 on about 0.18 acres at 2100 Grand Boulevard. Jared Clements is the staff planner.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome to sit down here if you're the applicant. That way you can be comfortable. And we'll have the staff give a presentation first and then we'll call upon you after that. All right.
All righty. Thank you, Joe. Good morning, commissioners. Before us, we have docket item number 5, case number CDSUP 2023-00011, located at 2100 Grand Boulevard. This is zoning district DX 15. The applicant in this case is seeking approval of a special use permit to allow for a hotel use on a boulevard. This is the location of the subject site. It's in the Crossroads. More specifically, it's on Grand Boulevard, just south of East 21st Street and just north of the railroad tracks. These are some of the key points of this project. It's a multi-story existing brick building and they're rehabbing the interior. It's a mixed-use project. They're including a hotel, office, spa, and coffee shop. Conditions include issuing an alternative compliance lighting plan and requiring an alternative compliant parking plan prior to certificate of occupancy. Staff has not received any public comment on this project. So these are some elevations of the building. The upper floors, including the top floor suite, will be the hotel use in question. The coffee shop will be in the lobby, with the lower floors being used for the office and spa uses. These here are just some enlarged elevations from the shell permit, which for this project, which is how the project's entitlement necessity was initially realized. The applicant team worked with staff to provide screening of the mechanical equipment on the rear of the facility to comply with section 88-425 of the zoning and development code. So staff has reviewed this in accordance with and found it to be in accordance with the special use permit analysis criteria and recommends approval subject to conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for city staff? Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for the applicant, please. Good morning.
Morning, my name is Omar Noah. I'm the representative and the PM for the project.
Okay.
And I'm here to address any questions regarding the project as well.
Okay, anything you'd like to present about the project, what you guys are planning to do or anything?
I think the areas and well needed. We visit with the home association across the street from the building. I think it's the Firestone building. And they were very happy. I think the HOA president came by to our meeting. And they were very inclined to hear that we were having such a project come live, because the building has been changing different types of design in the last couple of years. And we finally get into the final stage of the project, which it will enhance the area for opportunity for businesses, as well as providing some opportunity for folks when they visit Kansas City to stay in our hotel.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Just a question. What are you looking for on alternative parking and so forth?
Speak a little more into the microphone, please.
Sorry. Yeah. What are you looking for from looking at parking, alternative parking? I think that was.
Right now, we have a shared easement with the railroad. We do on the west side of the building, there is an area that is actually being controlled by the railroad, which is shared with us. As a shared easement, we're working with them to utilize an area that would probably fit somewhere around maybe 20 parking spot. And I think that will be utilized between 2110 and 2100. That will be a resolution before. That's one of the conditions that they, Jared mentioned, that are designated by the city that we have to meet before we get TCO.
And final question for me is just your stormwater retention in the CSO area, right?
There's already a natural, and there's actually an outlet already shared with the railroad on the side of the railroad on the west side, which has a detention catch base already in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, since they're not modifying the site. Yeah, they don't have to do anything with the stormwater management on that. Any other questions for the applicant?
I'm trying to identify the building in my. It's a former condo building.
No, ma'am.
Right across from the Western Auto Building, just to the west, across the street.
I thought. What is it? Costume place that was.
I think that was one further to the north. Yeah.
This is not the end building before you get to the railroad track.
It's like the second.
Brand new windows.
This is Western Auto Building here. All right, this time, let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 5, please come forward or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, there's no one in the audience and no one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close public testimony. Anything else you'd like to add about this case?
No, we just look forward to the opportunity, doing a good job and trying to provide an enhanced project for the community.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing to discuss, I'll take a motion, please.
Chair Crowell, I move to approve docket item number 5 with conditions.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 5 with conditions stated. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
And who seconded?
Beasley.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Got it. Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley, Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes 8-0. We appreciate you bringing it in and good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on to docket item number 6, please.
All right, docket item 6 is case number SUP 2023-00012. A request to approve a special use permit to allow for the expansion of an existing school in District R 7.5 on about 5 acres located at North Green Hills Road and Northwest 76 Terrace, just east of the Lake Waukomis city limits. Connor Tomlin is the staff planner, and I believe this is Connor's first presentation before the commission. He started with us about 4 months ago.
4 minutes ago?
4 months.
Oh. Okay.
It seems like 4 minutes, but yeah.
Good morning, commissioners. As Joe mentioned, it's CD SUP 2023-00012 on North Green Hills Road in an R75 zoning. The applicant is seeking a special use permit for expansions to the existing Russell Jones Education Center. This is the general location of the site. It abuts Lake Waukomis city lines. It's a little bit closer look here of the existing school, how it looks at the moment. This is the proposed site plan. The additions that they're proposing are on the northwest corner of the building, the south side of the building, and a redesign of the parking area on the south side of the building. This is their proposed landscape plan for the parking lot redesign. And staff recommends approval with conditions, with the removal of condition 6 and condition 9. Both conditions have since been met and are no longer applicable to the case.
Okay. Any questions for city staff? Let's welcome the applicant then.
Kyle Kippis, I'm with Call Valley Engineering. Staff has been excellent to work with. Stated school is looking to expand programming and increase occupancy of students. Hence the increase of parking areas. It's at capacity now, and with the addition of 10 to 15 faculty members, parking was also looking to increase some of the facilities for the students. That is associated improvements also is increased detention and best management practices. Project is in favor of staff's recommendations.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? What's your time frame on this? When you're going to construct?
It is submitted for permit. I believe construction would not start for another couple months still.
So it's going to be competing with the Green Hills Road improvements to the north up to Berry Road?
I believe this would be a fairly staged project because of the students that are attending the school, and also keeping construction going but not distracting from the students.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item 6, please come forward or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
Mr. Chair, there's no one in the audience who wishes to speak and no one on Zoom.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else to add?
Sure.
Okay.
I do just have one question. I've got to ask the type of BMP. Do you know
I'm sorry?
the type of BMP for stormwater management? Do you know what
Extended
that is?
detention. Extended detention. So we're limited on space. So we elected to, there's an existing detention basin there. So with some modifications to that detention basin, we are able to convert that detention basin to be an extended detention basin and accommodate best water quality for the additional impervious surfaces without needing to add additional footprint. Well, we're increasing the footprint of the detention basin, but we will not have to add separate BMPs from that detention basin that would increase maintenance issues, which run the risk of not being made.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Take a motion, please.
Chair Corral, I move to approve docket item number 6 with conditions, removing conditions number 6 and number 9.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 6 with removal of conditions 6 and 9. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowl,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes 8-0. Thanks for bringing it in and good luck. Good seeing you again. All right, docket item number 7, please.
Docket item 7 is 2 companion cases, starting with 7.1 CPC 2023-00048. Request to rezone about 5.9 acres located at Hardesty Avenue and East 12th Street from District R 1.5 to District R 0.75. And docket item 7.2, case number CPC 2023-00047. Request to approve a residential development plan at the same location. Andrew Clark is the staff planner.
Good afternoon, Chairman Crowell and fellow commissioners. As Joe said, you will now hear 7.1 and 7.2, and I will share my screen. Before you is a case CD CPC 2023-48, which is the rezoning without plan, and CPC 23-47, which is a residential development plan. The site is located just east of, or directly north of 12th Street and east of Hardesty Avenue. It's located in the 3rd Council District. As you can see here, there's a wide variety of zoning districts from manufacturing to commercial and residential within this area. And this development is the existing Greenleafs Apartments right there on 12th and Hardesty. And it spans both sides of Hardesty. Just for some familiarity, here is a view looking northwest. And then here's a view looking southwest on Winter Road. The applicant is the new owner of these apartments that have existed since the late 50s. And when these apartments were built, the zoning that we have now would not allow the owner to make any repairs if there was a fire or a tree were to fall down and destroy more than 50% of a building. Without the rezoning, it would be too much of a risk for someone to purchase this property, knowing that they would not be able to reconstruct one of the buildings if it was destroyed. The applicant will also be constructing a new community room, which the site has no amenities right now, as in community rooms, and also a new playground and a few additional parking stalls. Also, the new owner would like to secure the entire area. There will be perimeter gates as there's 2 major bus lines here. And it still allows for greater pedestrian circulation. And the fence will actually slow down traffic because when cars pull into any of the entrances, it will force them to slow down instead of speeding in as they do currently. And because this is a major amendment to the residential development plan, the applicant has to comply with our landscape code. So there will be 96 new trees, and I highlighted them. Right now, the area is missing just about every tree that was originally planted there. So that will be a huge benefit, not only for the residents, but for the city as a whole. Here are the rough elevations. And then I could not find out exactly when this was built, but it was between 53 and 61. Also, the applicant has to rezone. Right now, the zoning district is R 1.5. And which means each unit needs 100 or 1,500 square feet of lot area. When you take how many units there are divided by the acreage, it makes it non-conforming. It goes back to what I was saying. It's too much of a risk to buy this property and reinvest in it if you know you can't rebuild because the buildings are non-conforming. By rezoning to the R.75, the buildings will now be conforming. And if anything were to happen, they can rebuild. Staff recommends approval for the rezoning and approval with conditions for the residential development plan.
Any questions for city staff?
So we're rezoning because it's out of compliance because of age. And the second thing is the development plan, which includes the new community room and a fence. Is that correct?
Right. So the impervious area of 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
I should know it by heart, but the new structure is what's triggering a major amendment.
Sounds good. Just clarifying what we're.
And this will be getting rid of the CLNU that currently exist on this property.
Okay.
Any other questions?
This might be a question for the applicant, but I'm just wondering if they're doing any improvements to the housing, not necessarily.
Well, so that's what triggered all of this. They're going to be gutting each unit.
Oh, gutting me. Okay.
And so
Okay.
then their CLNU would be void. So they were in a real pickle
Oh, I see.
of they wouldn't even be able to purchase the property to make a reinvestment in it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
CLNU.
Certificate of legal non-conforming use.
Trying to picture where this new building. So I know there's a drawing in here, but the pictures of the actual structures. Since it's so small, they're not tearing anything down to build this new building, if I read it right.
There's that small little space right along Winter Road. So they're not tearing down any of the units to construct this building.
Yeah, it's going to go ahead.
Square footage on it.
Just over 3,000 square feet. It's a huge site, so it doesn't look very big. But 3,000.
Down is gonna be with that area as well.
The playground will be directly west to it as you get closer to the cemetery.
Thank
Yep.
Any other questions?
you.
Okay, we'd like to welcome the applicant. The applicant is available.
It's Kyle Miller.
Okay.
Hi, Kyle. As you come off of mute, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Kyle Miller. I'm with Crockett Engineering, here representing today the Greenleaf Preservation as well as MRK Partners. Here today to present to you, as staff has already presented, the application for the development plan and as well as rezoning for the Greenleaf Apartments. As you all have seen, the plan here is to keep all of the existing structures, the 11 structures that are on the site, and completely renovate the project, completely renovate all of the buildings, new floorings, new windows, everything gets new for the existing tenants. In addition to that, one thing that is triggering this, we are adding the community building as was stated. It's about around 2,000 square feet is what's getting added. So a little bit smaller. And yes, the idea is to keep it centrally located within this development as best we can to keep it close to all of the tenants. So that is the reason it was selected for this location. The other aspect that for this renovation project is that a security fence is getting installed around the entire perimeter of the facility. And as was stated, gates, main gates as well as vehicle gates will be at all entrances and sidewalks around the perimeter. So the idea here is, they're looking to purchase this, really revitalize it, renovate it, and bring it up to speed as it has been, built back in the 50s. It just needs a little facelift and bringing it up to speed. So this is part of our process of getting that done.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions for the applicant?
The occupancy now, how you gonna?
Speaking of the microphone.
I'm sorry, the occupancy, I'm thinking it was mentioned you are gonna go in and update the existing units.
Correct.
I'm thinking process of doing that.
Yeah, so usually that's done, you don't just start and do all the buildings at one time. It's usually kind of sequenced where you do building 1, building 2, and so forth down. And you move the tenants in one building to the other building that hasn't been renovated, and then start moving them back in once you get that process done. So it'll definitely be a little scheduling and organization that will have to be done with that. But the plan is to keep all the tenants there and keep them going.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
And is this affordable housing, subsidized affordable housing? Is there any other restrictions on the property?
It is subsidized, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
It's
let's,
my standard timeframe.
okay,
What was that question? I'm sorry.
Timeframe.
Time
When
frame.
you start to, not the complete rehab, but the new building and playground, that and fencing, that part of the project.
So that's definitely more of a question for the owner. I think, we're still a few months out from getting design plans finalized with the city, and then we'll probably have about a year process of construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
as part of your project, it looks like you have the 1.5 inch for detention. Any idea where you're going to place that on this site?
Sure. So that was a comment that we received from city staff. I've worked with Terry there as well as Lucas on those questions. A full stormwater report will be given to city staff, spelling out what our reasoning and process behind that is. If a basin is required, it will be placed behind that community building. But at this time, it's anticipated that the amount of impervious area will be relatively small, enough to not trigger a full compliance with that.
Okay. All right, so at this time, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket items 7.1 or 7.2, please raise your hand or come using the Zoom feature or come forward.
Mr. Chair, there's no one in the chamber or online that wishes to speak.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony then. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Miller?
Not at this time. Appreciate everyone's time today.
Okay, thank you. I guess any comments from the commission? If none, I'll take a motion, please.
Chair Crowell, I move to approve docket item 7.1 without conditions and 7.2 with conditions.
Second.
So I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket items 7.1 and 7.2. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Corral,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the motion passes then 8-0. So we appreciate you bringing it in and good luck as you move forward.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Sure. All right, we're ready for docket item number 8, please.
Chairman,
Yes.
I sit on Guadalupe Center's board and I'm very aware of the next project, so I have to recuse myself.
Okay,
I'll get up and leave.
all right, you get that, Lisa? Commissioner Rojas will be recusing himself.
Got it.
All right, thank you.
Docket item 8 is case number CPC 2023-00041. Request to approve the Guadalupe PIEA plan and declare the area blighted and unsanitary and in need of redevelopment and rehabilitation pursuant to the Missouri Planned Industrial Expansion Authority law. Andrew Clark is the staff planner.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I will introduce this project and then hand it off to the applicant as this is a tax incentive plan. Before you now is docket number 8, CDCPC 2023-41, the Guadalupe PIEA area plan. This is located very adjacent to our last case, off of Truman Road and Van Brunt in the 3rd Council District. Here is the plan area. And staff did recommend approval. And I will pass it off to Mr. Belke now.
If I may, Chairman Crowell, my name is David McCoubry. I am the executive director of the PIEA, and we are the applicant. And our address is at 300 Wyandotte in Kansas City. As it relates to the property that will be defined, the upcoming qualification analysis will focus on the PIEA's statutory requirements in pursuit of creating a PIA planning area. If successful, the area within the boundaries will be eligible for PIA's incentives. A developer's representative, Jim Potter, is present and can expound upon the prospective project and answer questions. With your blessing, I'd like to introduce our consultant, Scott Belke with Belke Appraisal, who will present the findings from his analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Scott Belke, Belke Appraisal and Consulting, 3100 Northwest 57th Street, Kansas City, Missouri. Here on behalf of the applicant to present the blight study and the general development plan for the proposed Guadalupe apartments. As was shown, the property lies in the northwest quadrant of Hardesty and Van Brunt Drive in the southeast portion of the Guadalupe campus. That's looking west to east across the property. That's looking from the north on Van Brunt along the, abandoned alleyway. There are 9 tax parcels here, 1 ownership, 2.32 acres. It's currently zoned R 2.5. It's vacant. It is within the continuously distressed census tracts and within the Northland EEZ. So quickly to run through the 3 blight conditions to see if they lead to the 3 blight components. First one, insanitary or unsafe conditions, issues with sidewalks, curbs and gutters, roadways, sewer inlets, loitering and trespassing, accumulated trash, and illegal dumping. This is looking west on Van Brunt Drive. You can see that there are no.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, you're not sharing your screen to everybody. You're just sharing to us. We'll get you some help here.
Okay.
Yep, sorry about that.
Continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
A view west on Van Brunt showing where there are no public sidewalks. Come on. Figure it out here. Okay. Photographs of loitering and trespassing. Additional ones. Over 100 pictures in the blight study of this illegal dumping and accumulated trash. Vermin. And then deterioration of site improvements, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, roadways, abandoned driveways and alleyways, retaining walls, construction, rubble, and landscaping. So here you see unsafe sidewalk, deteriorating curbs, unsafe sewer inlets, the adjoining roadways, the abandoned alleyway that once served residential buildings that were on this site, abandoned driveway, construction rubble that's on the site, and landscaping issues. Endangerment by fire or other causes, crime issues, buried single-family residences, falling tree limbs, poor soils, utility lines, construction rubble, and neighborhood blighting impact. Crime can often be an issue in the center city. The Truman Plaza area plan in which this property lies states as its #1 primary goal to promote safe and clean neighborhoods and decrease the crime rate. This project is similar to a project that was before you approximately, I think about 2 years ago. The existing 63rd and Prospect PIA plan area where there were buried houses that were on that site. CFS Engineering did a study in February of 2023, and they found rubble that these houses had been demolished and then buried on site. Another issue that CFS engineers found during their February study was undocumented fill that went from 4 feet to 13 feet in depth that was unsafe for any foundation systems. Falling tree limbs on the property, on public sidewalks, and in the public roadways. There is a emergency warning siren that's in this alleyway that's going to need to be vacated. There are also overhead power lines that are going to need to be taken down. There are a number of neighborhood blighting issues. These two up in the left-hand corner are across the street, boarded up houses across the street from this property. This particular house right here is 1/2 block to the east. This one is 1 block to the east. This commercial property is on Truman Road, and then these other ones are further to the east on Truman Road. These are the condition of homes within a 1-mile radius of the property. And just unsightly dumping within the neighborhood within a 1-mile radius. That led me to conclude that there's a predominance of these 3 issues that lead to the blight conditions. And we'll run through those real quick. Hindrance to housing accommodations. Census Tract 22 has suffered 34% population loss between 1970 and 2020. The median household income in the census tract is $19,787, and the metro-wide average is 250% higher. That's why it's in the designated continuously distressed census tract. The last use on this property was 24 years ago when the single-family residences were there. Those have now been varied. There's a difficult topography, poor soils, and then there's the bisecting abandoned alleyway, which runs north-south through the property with utilities and the emergency siren. Blight condition 2, economic or social liabilities. There's foregone economic impact, unrealized assessment, unrealized taxation, and then the extended underutilization since 1999. Social liabilities, pedestrian and vehicular circulation and repairs, safety, sanitary, and crime concerns, trespassing, loitering, illegal dumping, accumulated trash, construction rubble and buried houses, falling tree limbs, long-term vacancy and underutilization, negative influences from the adjoining and nearby blighting conditions. Third blight condition, menace to public health, safety, and welfare. There are numerous issues: health, trash and illegal dumping, safety, trespassing, loitering, graffiti, crime, buried residences and construction rubble, falling tree limbs, abandoned driveway, alleyway, and overhead utility lines, the lack of safe public sidewalks along Van Brunt, and deteriorating roadways, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. And then in terms of the public welfare, long-term vacancy and underutilization, unrealized taxation, and diminished housing opportunities and economic impact, which led me to conclude that long-term vacant and underutilized land tracts within the urban fabric, lacking upkeep and supervision, detract from the vibrancy of the urban core. Redevelopment of this tract, of this vacant 2.32 acre tract, will alleviate blight and reinvigorate and enhance the vitality of the subject in the adjoining neighborhoods. Then I just have 2 more slides. One showing the proposed Guadalupe Apartments, which would be a 3 to 4 story structure facing predominantly to Hardesty Avenue to the east. And then just to kind of recap those, the current FAR is 0. The developed FAR is 0.6. That's 21.6 units per acre. These will be 4-story elevated apartment units, 42 tax credit units, 8 market units, 65 on-site, off-street parking spaces. That's 1.3 per unit. They'll have a community room and then a rooftop desk, and the estimated development cost is $16.1 million. What's particularly interesting in this project is in the city's quest for affordable housing, you can see over in this column here that this project would create 42 1- and 2-bedroom units from 765 square feet up to 1,070 square feet, renting for less than $550 per month. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering with this proposed development and if it's an approved declaration of blight, how much of the surrounding within the 1 mile radius that you show that this development will improve? Like, is it sidewalks? Is it, working with those vacant homes that's there? Or is it just the conditions around the neighborhood stay the same, but we have a shiny building?
Well, hopefully you're improving, one property at a time. Sidewalks should be added along Van Brunt Drive. And then there's always an issue with the vacant tracks within the urban core with transient activity, and improving this property will improve the policing and the supervision of this site and should help to alleviate some of the blighting issues that are within the neighborhood.
My next question is, if this is a tax incentive, have you talked to the school district and what's the proposed impact to that tax base revenue?
I think the developer would be best equipped to answer that question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, members of the commission, Jim Potter, 3965 West 83rd Street. Here representing Guadalupe Center and Consolidated Housing Solutions. This is a joint venture between the two. This project is funded through Missouri Housing Development Corporation, MHDC. We did receive a tax credit allocation for the project. As Scott mentioned, 42 of the 50 units are income restricted to 60% or less median income. Additionally, we have, I believe, 8 units that will be restricted to 30% or less than median income. The duration of those restrictions will last 30 years through a land use restriction agreement, ALURA. That follows the duration of the tax credits through MHDC. To answer your question regarding infrastructure, we are required to, or we will be required to replace the sidewalk infrastructure on the east side and the south side of the projects. This is a tough site. I mean, there's nothing flat there. The topography is tough. We have a number of former single-family residential parcels, which at the time when those were demoed, they were just dumped into the basements of those particular sites. We have anywhere between 4 to 13 feet of unsuitable fill across the site. We're going to be pulling at least 4 feet of that out of the site so we can put our building, our footing foundations. So that essentially is driving up the cost of this development. We also have alley vacation that we'll have to do. And in fact, we're going to be back before this body in a few weeks for our alley vacation, our rezoning, and our plan, our development plan approval. With that, Scott mentioned that it's a roughly $16 million project. We do hope that this will be a positive reinforcement for the area for reinvestment, both along Truman Road and into some of the neighborhoods along Hardesty and then farther south. I guess with that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions, but appreciate your consideration on this matter.
I'm happy to answer the question from the commissioner concerning property tax abatement. And yes, the reason we are doing this this effort, this blight study and general development plan seeking approval, is to make the area eligible for our benefits, which includes property tax abatement. and sales tax exemption on construction materials, but I don't think that's going to be an issue with this project. It'll probably mostly be property tax abatement.
Yeah, I think it's a great project. I mean, when I look at the rents for this size, but what I would be hopeful of is that developers will work with the school district. A 30-year tax abatement is 2 generations of kids going through. And I understand that this site is tax neutral at this point, but we see development from a variety of places and they come with the school district or they hold them harmless. But when it comes to KCPS, we don't ever see that. So I would like to have seen some kind of partnership. 30 years is a long time for a tax abatement.
Go ahead with your question.
My question is, you keep referring to the Hardesty side, but you also brought in Van Brunt. So is this a phase project? You're just doing a couple facing Hardesty and you're coming back to do the Van Brunt side of the parcels?
No, ma'am. This is a single phase project. It's at the northwest corner of Hardesty and Van Brunt Drive. So the apartment building will front Hardesty, roughly at 16th and Hardesty. It'll be on the west side of that.
You're at the
that
top of the
intersection.
hill.
Pardon me?
At the top of the hill.
Correct.
So is the park still there on the corner?
Park south of Van Brunt Drive will remain the same. And we will improve the southern piece of this site along Van Brunt Drive.
But your 2 acres is only on the Hardesty side. You don't have the acreage on the Van Brunt side?
The site is along, the majority of the site is along Hardesty. The primary entrance to this project will be right there at 16th and Hardesty roughly. That alleyway going down north-south will be vacated. And we also be replacing all the curb cuts, sidewalks, et cetera, which are on Van Brunt Drive right now.
There's a Van property as well as the other Van Brunt.
Yeah, you got
Show
Van
us
Brunt
about-
Drive along the south side of the project. And then you have Van Brunt Boulevard that's a little bit further south.
Thinking of.
Truman is
the
up here on the
curves
north
and
end.
blue.
Answer your question?
Yes and no. So do they own the rest of the property on the Van Brunt side? Is that part of the Guadalupe Center campus?
South of Van Brunt Drive, no. Guadalupe does not own that. Everything north.
Van Brunt Park is on the south side of Van Brunt Drive there.
So I remember when this site was owned by St. Paul's. So that's why I was trying to visualize the complete campus from Truman Road up the hill on Van Brunt and Hardesty. So this lower part is not part of Guadalupe now.
Everything south of Van Brunt Drive is not part of the Guadalupe campus. I believe it's Parks Department.
Where's the girls' preparatory? I know they had gone out to get the purple thing. Right? I knew
Yeah.
they were trying to get that green part to go with their campus. That's the parkland stuff there. Okay. I won't belabor it. I will go out and drive it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, let's open it up for public testimony then. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 8, please come forward. I guess we don't have anybody else to come forward. Or raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
As you mentioned, no one to come forward in the chamber and no one on Zoom has raised their hand.
Okay, so go ahead and close public testimony then. On this one, Joe, we're just looking at approval for blight, and is there a plan as well, or is that coming in later?
Yeah, this is a designation of blight and the general development plan.
No development plan.
It's the general development plan that comes with that designation. Oops.
Okay.
That comes with that designation. It's typical with the PIEA. So you're being asked to make a recommendation on both.
And
Okay, just make sure.
It's not a site development plan. It's not a site plan. It's a narrative plan about how the site will be redeveloped.
Okay.
and Chairman Crowell, in 2 weeks, next hearing, you're going to see the rezoning to UR and development plan.
Okay,
This is just going to be heard first.
okay. Just making sure. Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
I'm curious, it's a question I've got. What are you doing with the fill that you're taking out of the site?
Well, based on the construction of those previous residences, we may have some asbestos lead-based paint. We'll have to test that. If the presence of those materials are positive, then we'll have to dispose of those within a regulated landfill. The balance of the site, we'll use a little bit of fill on site, but it'll have to go off site. I don't know exactly where that's going to go right now, but likely to a construction debris landfill.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
Chair Crowell, I move to approve docket number 8 without conditions, finding the designation of blight, recommending the finding of the designation of blight in the general development plan.
Second.
is it okay to do it all as one motion? Okay. All right, so I've got a motion and a second for the approval of docket item number 8 as to the finding of blight as well as the project plan as prepared. Lisa, can you take roll call on that motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
No.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like the project has been approved 6-1. Thank you for bringing it in and good luck as you move forward on this. Yeah. All right. I remember somebody need to leave by 12:45.
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I'll step out now. Thanks.
Okay, so Lisa, Commissioner Rojas is back and Commissioner Enders will be leaving for this final case. So if we can hear docket item number 9, please.
Docket item 9 is case number SUP 2023-00016. Request to approve a special use permit for outdoor warehousing and wholesaling uses on about 2.7 acres in District M1-5 at 2000 Gwinnett Avenue. Genevieve Khan is the staff planner.
All right, as Joe mentioned, docket item number 9 is for a special use permit to allow outdoor warehousing, wholesaling, storage. It's all one use in our zoning code. And the outdoor aspect of it requires a special use permit at this location for Hampel Oil. The site is generally located just south of the river, east of the downtown area. And it is zoned M1-5. There is one existing building on the site on the east side, and then the rest is just currently paved and not being used at this time. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. As you can see, here's the existing building on the east side of the site. And the special use permit for Hample Oil is proposing 4 large concrete, I believe, tanks. I have a picture in the next slide. And sorry, 5 tanks. 4 of the tanks will hold 30,000 gallons of diesel fuel each, and 1 of the tanks will hold 20,000 gallons of gasoline. And they are to be located on this center pad area. And this is an example of what they will look like. And then I just have the landscaping plan here. There's some landscaping proposed to screen some of the parking areas. And there will be a metal wire mesh fencing. The area is largely industrial, so where staff isn't terribly concerned about extensive screening from, residential or other sensitive uses. And then I just have some street view of the site. This is that existing building that will be utilized with this special use permit. And then this is the western portion of the site, the paved area where the tanks will be located. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and I can take any questions at this time. And Brian with MKEC is online as the applicant as well.
Okay, any questions for city staff?
Just the comply, what's the secondary containment? And so I see there's bunds and so forth around those tanks. Any leak detection or anything like that that needs to be put in?
I'll let the applicant speak to all the other non-city regulations that they also need to adhere to based on their location.
Okay, any other questions for city staff? Okay, with that, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Brian Hochstein with MKEC Engineering, 11827 West 112th Street in Overland Park, Kansas. I will certainly answer the containment answer here in just a second. Basically, don't have much of a presentation. If Genevieve would like to kind of keep the site plan up, I can speak to a few things. But the current site is blighted and is an EPA contaminated site. It was previously the Univar Chemical Company. And so we are under plenty of regulations, as you can imagine, and the previous tenant is responsible for the monitoring and cleanup of that. So our goal on this site, given those conditions, is to make improvements to the structure and then have this outdoor storage. The building itself is fairly dilapidated and has experienced a lot of vandalism, copper theft, electrical, you name it, it's been damaged. So the building will get an entire renovation in and of itself. On the site, in the exterior of the building, our goal is to touch as little soil as humanly possible, as you can imagine, with the soil being contaminated. So what we're constructing is containment generally that will sit on the top of the paved surfaces that exist out there today. They'll be structurally designed to do so. What this containment does is a couple things. It is for any spillage that would occur with onloading and offloading of the trucks. And then we have sand oil separators to capture containment, monitor any spills. If there were a catastrophic event, it's also meant to handle that kind of loading as well. So they're designed with ramps on both sides so the trucks can get up to them. And then we've got a secondary area where we have tanks coming for indoor storage of materials. And that truck loading area also has containment. So those little walls you see around it protect it from leaving the site. Furthermore, part of why this site was selected is we can control it. It all kind of drains to the center of the site, which is not typical. And that's kind of the general containment part that we're doing. The other parts, of course, there'll be some minor patching of pavement. Again, the goal would be to mill and overlay, not to disturb. We know we're in a CSO district, so we certainly don't want to be disturbing more than the threshold. And then improving the site dramatically. It's not very well maintained at this point. So cleaning it up, adding the screening, fencing. It was absolutely necessary given previous vandalism. And generally, we agree with all the stipulations as presented by staff and are here to answer any other further questions you guys have.
So you're building diesel storage on a contaminated site. Is that what I heard?
That's correct. Yep.
And you don't have to clean up the site to build?
So the previous tenant, due to their, and I do have the owner on, so I'm not trying to misspeak at all. I'm not very involved with the EPA side of things, but the previous tenant, Univar, is responsible for the monitoring of the site. Where you get in trouble with containment is typically if you're exposing it, which is why we don't want to uncap it. We don't want to unpave things because that would open it up to the soil that is contaminated. Univar will be responsible to continue to monitor the site. They have monitoring wells on site that go to a it looks like a giant shipping container, but it's a monitoring station out on site. And so they will continue to monitor it.
So just a question, is that for start, does that hit city policy?
I don't know of any city policies that pertain to this. Probably state level.
Yeah, we are working with state and federal. Yep.
To me, you don't clean up well, I suppose it's capped, but cleaning up the site when you're actually building diesel fuel storage on top of it. Payment leaks, you've got more contamination.
Yeah, our argument would be that this site, if you were, is ideal for this type of condition because it's in an industrial area. It's experienced a various life. In fact, part of the cleanup we are doing on the site is removing walls and previous containment from the site. So there has been above ground storage on the site before. It was just all removed by Univar when they left the site. In fact, I think they were repurposing the tanks. So our argument would be because it had a previous life with exterior storage, that this site is well suited for that storage, particularly the grading and paving that exists on the site today.
All right. Any other questions from the commission to the applicant? Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony then. If there's anybody out there that would like to speak regarding docket item number 9, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature and you'll be called upon.
We do have one person, Bill Hample.
Okay. I assume he's part of the applicant.
He is, and I don't know if I think he'd be willing to speak, but I don't know that he was planning to today.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, kind of barely.
Yeah. Bill Hample, 12145 Northwest Street, Wichita, Kansas, managing partner of the property owner. Just a little bit more about what Brian was saying is the containment is designed by a professional engineer, their firm actually, structural engineer. The base of the containment is 24 inches deep, 12 inches of compact fill and 12 inches of concrete, and the walls are similarly designed up to I can't remember the exact height, but probably somewhere around 24 to 27 inches is what they typically are. So it's well designed to prevent any spillage of fuel from into the surrounding areas. It's designed to be compliant with what's called SPCC. It's a federal regulation called Spill Prevention, Countermeasures, and Control. We're very familiar with that and comply with all the conditions of that, as well as a code by the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 30, and we comply with all those. We have a lot of experience with these and putting these up in a number of different locations. As far as the contamination on the site, that has been addressed by the former owner, or excuse me, former tenant, Univar. They do have a letter of agreement out with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and it's a voluntary letter, but I believe there's voluntary to clean up the site, but MDNR has agreed to it that they will remediate the site. There is a remediation equipment on site right now, soil extraction, soil vapor extraction system, and that is designed to pull contaminants from the soil and extract them into the air. I think they currently have a permit that's been approved by MDNR to start up the system. So they've taken, Univar has taken full responsibility in the cleanup of the site. Our responsibility as a future owner in operating a wholesale fuel distribution operation is to prevent any future contamination. That's one of that and the security of our employees are really the two things that we have in mind as we're redeveloping this site. So like I say, we have a number of these locations, and to my knowledge, we've never contaminated any soil because of the preventative measures that we take in the design of them. So I don't think that there should be a problem with that, in my opinion.
So just a question. So are you cleaning up the site before you're building the storage?
No, they are being done concurrently, or they will be done concurrently.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? So since that was anybody else for public testimony?
No, there is no one else.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public testimony, and Bill, you're welcome to speak as part of the applicant. I don't know, any other thoughts here from you guys before we make a motion? That's you, Brian and Bill.
No, I don't have anything else.
No, I'm good as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the commission on this? Okay, I'll take a motion, please. Oh. Anybody step up, please.
Mr. Chair, I approve for case number 9, approval with conditions as per staff recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for approval of docket item number 9 with conditions stated. Lisa, can you take roll call on the motion, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion passes then 7-0. Thank you for bringing it in and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. So that concludes the items we have on the agenda. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before the commission? Okay, anything else, commissioners, you want to discuss? Or excuse you for the day? Okay, so a motion to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you. See you all next time.